that? It's a Delta force. I said, take that out, pull that little pause thing out, change it to the next one, run it, see how it works.
Is he doing it? Is his health okay?
It seems to be. He's still going to all the sales and everything.
Is he still collecting stuff? He told me he was going to tear that house down one time, and I thought,
House is gone.
no way.
Yeah. House.
Where did you put all that stuff?
In the sheds, he took over the shop, and in his house. I was over there, well, about a month and a half ago with my lift, and we got his little chainsaw out, and he had a pretty big, huge limb, about this big of a maple tree. It was hanging over where his car, parked his car.
Tell him I'm still cutting.
You're still cutting?
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody around that wants something down, if they're close to the house and they're not leaning.
Are you still burning wood, or you're just cutting?
No, I'm just cutting. I'm just cutting and grinding limbs. It's hard work, but
Yeah. Well, that's what Lonnie did on the ground for me. Cut the stuff. I said, Lonnie, I don't walk around very well. I don't get over limbs and stumble.
yeah.
So,
But yeah, I did some about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and cut a pretty good sized tree up. You wouldn't even know it was there. I ended up digging the ground up and hosing it down and cutting it stuff and covering it.
say hi to have them both there.
Oh, I didn't ride my scooters today. Got in the car. Driving the car. Anyway,
I don't weigh anything at this
You know about it. Would it be an inconvenience for you if I turn that into you now? No, you don't have to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd sign that.
Yep.
Do you know if he's seen something this morning?
That probably is out.
I feared as much, but didn't know for sure.
Oh, here you go.
They don't want to say, oh, bringing
Pictures of that. Across the board. Or what? My wife and I every time I go to yeah, wherever they have a chance, likes to get. Oh, really? No.
Matt? How are you doing?
Well, my daughter, he had your dog for
It's tough when you can't work it out.
Know how that is.
Probably wasn't too bad.
No, but this will probably be worse.
Mine was 75 minutes.
Getting better, Jed?
Can't really sell them because they egg. I didn't know that.
Anticipation must be high tonight. It's as quiet as it got here beforehand. Several. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. I have 7 o'clock on my iPad here, so we'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Prayer tonight, Spirit Patterson.
Lord, let us pray. Pray for those involved in the very serious accidents and sicknesses recently in this county, and there has sure been a lot of them this last month. especially the 4 young men that were in the accident this week up at Central A&M or in the Assumption area. Unfortunately, not all have survived. Some are fighting very hard to stay with us. We pray for their recovery, their family, their friends, and all those who are helping them. Lord, please continue to help all of them. There's one in our midst here tonight. Lord, please help to bring the war in the Ukraine to an end, so all those people involved can rebuild their bodies and their lives. Please be with all of us. Help us make the correct decisions for Shelby County and our futures. Help us to keep Shelby County a wonderful place to live and work. Keep us safe and allow us to keep all the rights that we need and honor. Please teach us to cooperate, be great team players and listeners. Lord, most of all, just continue to love, lead, and teach all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Here.
Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett. Teresa Bain.
Here.
Brian Kaufman.
Here.
Cassie Cox. Dennis Durnovich.
Here.
Jesse Durbin.
Here.
Julie Edwards.
Here.
Gary Gergany. Rod Height. Matt Kessler.
Here.
Larry Lenz. Sharon Ongman.
Here.
Robert Orman.
Here.
Gary Patterson.
Here.
Derek Piercy.
Here.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
Jeff Slifer.
Here.
David Switz.
Here.
Don Tate.
Here.
Lynn Williams.
Here.
All right, approval of last month's meeting minutes. I believe everybody got a copy of those. Any corrections or additions to those meeting minutes?
I did have one question. On the second page on the discussion about treating the ASME and the non-unions the same, I guess, I felt that discussion was about treating them all the same, but I don't think we actually voted to pass anything, and I wasn't sure if that was clear or not in that paragraph. I think we voted to treat them all the same, but I don't think we voted for any kind of a package because we didn't have the names and the positions that were available, and there was a lot of discussion, but, it's still got to be.
Well, and the bottom line is you tabled the MOU for ASME anyway, so it's not like there was anything to, I think you were just saying that the non-union employees in the ASME offices will receive the same treatment when the MOU is passed as the.
But the additional discussion that I guess that I know I made at that meeting, and I think some others did, is ASME we know exactly who's included, and non-union we don't know exactly who's included, and I want to treat them all the same that are similar positions, but, I think we got to decide who is in similar positions. That's the part I guess I thought was missing there. I don't think every non-union employee in the county, would be the same as an AFSCME or an FOP employee.
Okay, I think we're in a discussion here, and we really need to go to whether you have anything to add to the minutes or correct the minutes.
Well, I was corrected. I think that's what I really said.
So what would you like the minutes to be amended to?
I think just take out the part that we didn't apply the MOU to the non-union, that we discussed treating the non-union and ASME offices the same. But I didn't feel like we applied the MOU to them.
We'll stop here for a second. I'm trying to relive my parliament procedure from my high school days. Does that have to be made in a motion?
I don't know what the correction.
That correction, does that have to be a motion with a second, or does it get put in, and then if it doesn't pass, and we vote on the amended, if it doesn't pass, then we move forward, and it stays where it is? I think that's what it would be. We just have to amend it. Then we vote on the amended minutes, and they pass, they go to that. If they don't, we're back to square one and see if we can get approval on last month's minutes from there. So, you're supposed to throw me a curveball this quick in the game here.
Oh.
So let's do.
I mean, my only correction is just that I felt like we voted to treat them the same, but we didn't have an MOU, and I don't think we voted to apply the MOU, and if we did.
So basically, you
speak
just
up.
want the motion to say Orman's motion to treat the non-union employees in an AFSCME office the same as the union employees would be treated.
Yes, which is how it was stated on the agenda.
Okay. I will make that correction.
So that paragraph, the end of that paragraph now reads what for everybody here?
Well, basically, Orman is going to make a motion to approve equal treatment, which is basically what I put. Orman made a motion to approve equal treatment pay to the non-union employees at AFSCME offices. Gergany seconded said motion. I didn't, say, it just said equal treatment. And then it basically, the end, when I actually typed out, then I said Orman's motion to apply this MOU to the non-union employees. So I'll basically change that to Orman's motion to approve equal treatment to the non-union employees in AFSCME offices. Seconded by Gergany, passed by roll call vote.
Any other additions or corrections? We'll have a motion to accept these as written and changed.
So moved.
David, second.
Second.
Barb.
Julie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He doesn't have my name.
I know your name. I heard the voice and I saw who I saw.
I've been called that.
So, all those in favor, any discussion on this? All those in favor of the amended minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Going to move on to public body comment. Looks like we got some new faces here tonight. I want to lay out some ground rules here. You get 5 minutes. Please give me your name when you stand up and acknowledge so I know who you are so I can see how many minutes you use. When the buzzer goes off, your time is up. I'll open her up. Sir in the back with his hand up.
My name is John Curtis. I'm the pastor at Cornerstone Community Fellowship in Shelbyville. And I'm here to commend the Shelby County Board for their faithfulness to the Declaration of Independence. We just celebrated the 4th of July and the Declaration of Independence. And you know what it states. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We didn't evolve equal. The government didn't make us equal. The Creator made us equal. And it goes on to say that we are endowed by this Creator with certain unalienable rights, which means, I guess, unalienable, nobody can take them away. No lesser authority, no Supreme Court, no president, no governor, no legislative body, not even a tyranny of 51% of we the people can take them away because they are given to us by a higher authority in our government, the Creator himself, as the Declaration declares. So the Declaration of Independence acknowledges our Creator. So how can he be unconstitutional? He's declared in the Declaration, and the Constitution codifies the rights that he gives us. So how can he be unconstitutional? In any public discussion, in any government meeting, in any place, even in Shelby County public schools. The Creator cannot be unconstitutional.
Now, I know people might think kids can learn about the Creator in Sunday school. But the last time I checked, the Declaration of Independence is not a Sunday school paper. It is the founding document of our government. So maybe it wouldn't hurt to teach the kids about this Creator. In the time of social and political and cultural upheaval, I commend the Shelby County Board. We have a governing body that acknowledges our Creator with prayer, very good prayer. I appreciate it. And we're praying for those families. We acknowledge Him in prayer. We acknowledge Him in our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. So on behalf of my church and myself and the kingdom of God, we appreciate the fact that the Shelby County Board opens its meetings acknowledging our Creator. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Teese. I'm with American Medical Response. I'm with Seth Largent. He is a crew leader for my ambulance service that I help run here in the area. American Medical Response is a nationwide company. We understand that this community and the city of Shelbyville may be having some issues down the road, but we would like to possibly talk or meet with someone that we could discuss how we may be able to help your community. I'm just now getting some facts from some people as far as call volumes and the sizes. This is rather impressive. I've been to some other meetings before, county board meetings, where they're not quite this. This is amazing. So I love the involvement, and I know some of the other people here that live in Shelby County, Seth's a resident, and we were interested in possibly helping your community with emergency medical services. If anybody would like to, I'll stick around after the meeting. That's quite an agenda you have there. If you guys, I'll stick around if someone wants to talk. I'd be interested in having that conversation. So again, thank you for your time. I only took 2 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kirk Allen. I want to go over a couple things. A lot of misinformation out there, and I want folks to realize the importance of this particular document I'm going to read from. Is that funny? Excuse me? I requested a copy of the actual hours worked, start and stop, for the sheriff's deputies for the last 12 months, all shifts. Copy of all actual hours worked, start and stop, for the sheriff's office correction officers for the last 12 months. That was in January of 20. In bold print, I wrote, I am not seeking a calendar showing shifts people work. I'm seeking actual documentation that reflects the actual hours these employees worked that shows when they start and stop their workday. What I was provided was a log-in, log-out file as the public record applicable to that request. Now, someone's lied to the state police because they said, oh, we don't use that. Well, you either lied to the state police or you lied to me. I was told those records, and it's the only public record, and I challenge anybody to find any other public record. This confirms the log-in, log-out was the timesheet being used. If they're going to say it's not, this is a forgery in their response, because they provided records they knew were not accurate and true. That is a criminal offense, and you don't need to be a lawyer to understand that. That's a problem, and I hope, and I believe one board member at the last meeting talked about this log-in, log-out file. That was one of the records withheld from your auditor. That was one of the key records that was withheld. It was always available. It was never made available to your auditor. That's a problem in itself. I also want to bring your attention to the county code, 5/2-1001. At bottom paragraph, at each regular and special meeting which is open to the public, members of the public, and employees of the county shall be afforded time, subject to reasonable constraints, to comment to or ask questions of the board Asking questions does not make a person an asshole. I say that, and I know the person in this room knows why I said it. This is separate and distinct from the Open Meetings Act. The county code provides a time for the public to ask questions. Anybody want to guess what the legislative intent behind that is? It's to get answers to questions. It doesn't mean on the spot, but it does mean you need to answer the public's questions. So with that, I'm going to default back to some documents that I asked Mr. Simpson about. This was a document created 5 years after the fact. Mr. Simpson's refused to answer any questions. I would love to know who created the document, why it was created 5 years after the fact. Because this document says it was started in 2015. This was special pay. I believe the auditor referred to this as the Shelby County Special or something to that effect. They'll be compensated by receiving 5 comp days or days off each year, and that this was shared with the Law Enforcement Committee. I challenge you to show me Law Enforcement Committee meetings minutes that have anything on there about it. I've reviewed them all. It's not in any of those. What I did find, though, is the first 100-day, what I call bragging sheet from the former sheriff. And in that, he talks about the 2 sergeants and 2 corporals being promoted and 2 sergeants of the correction officers being promoted. That's 6 people. It says nothing about pay, unlike Mr. Simpson's document. And in fact, it says the implementation of these programs and changes has come at no additional cost to the Shelby County taxpayers. So, Mr. Simpson, I ask again, if the sheriff is telling in his bragging document of the first 100 days it came at no cost, why are you documenting that they were getting comp time without any board approval whatsoever? These are conflicting documents, folks. People are lying about this. And I'm shocked that nobody wants to get to the truth. And I beg you to prove me wrong. I'll stand before God and country and say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I'll be happy to. But so far, it's a bunch of innuendos without documentation and a paper trail to support what people are saying. I've got a paper trail. It's much like the audit. It's pretty crystal clear. There's a lot of information in this. But you've got a state's attorney that said the final result was an underpayment. That's not the final result. Not even close. Yes, there's underpayments, and yes, there's overpayments, but the final result, you people need to start representing people, answer their questions.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I am the AFSCME president. I'm here tonight to stress the urgency in passing the AFSCME MOU so we can receive the ARPA funds retroactive to June 9. This requires a 2/3 vote determining an immediate emergency exists for that to occur. I know many of you have the opinion that no immediate emergency exists, but I'd like to explain our case. You think, what's the big deal waiting until September 1st? That isn't that far away anyway. Our members have families, and it would help make a difference during these difficult economic times. Families are struggling right now, and receiving the ARPA funds retroactively to June would help provide some relief. Granted, the immediate emergency was determined to exist for FOP because of the public safety risk with the sudden loss of deputies. But why was there an immediate emergency for all the other staff at the Sheriff's Office? All members of FOP, including secretaries, dispatchers, and janitors, received lucrative ARPA increases. I didn't notice a mass exodus of those employees. Not to mention the FOP MOU was revised to include 4 employees leaving employment from the county. Giving certain employees more money to leave than you offer us to stay and work is mind-blowing. That alone speaks volumes about how you value our worth and significance. I was at that December board meeting and was appalled at the lack of questions raised before passing their proposal. No one thought to ask about the cost or the effect of that MOU before passing it. We know you think there is no public safety concern with AFSCME employees leaving the county. As I've stated in the past, We currently have several members searching for other employment. Very soon you'll have public safety concern when the county has no animal control warden, no laborers to maintain our county roads, and no one from the health department to inspect restaurants or food vendors. You can expect long lines in the courthouse for tax collection, voting in November, as well as backlogs in the circuit clerk's office, all because offices are short-staffed. Earlier this week, I emailed the cost of our lump sum bonuses and $1 an hour increases until the end of our contract on August 31st, 2024. That amount is less than $135,000. Compare that to the $420,000 resolution you approved to transfer funds for the FOP, and that was only enough money to support it from February to August 31st of this year. I believe $135,000 is a small price to pay to restore our faith in this board and begin moving forward from this terrible situation. Since December, we tried to schedule negotiation meetings to reach an agreement with the county. We bargained in good faith with the legislative committee and finally came to an agreement on June 2nd. Was it the package we hoped to receive? No, it wasn't, but at least it was something for our 6-month struggle of stall tactics, members blaming others, and excuses delaying our ARPA funds until September 1. During negotiations, you said FOP MOU was a mistake, and the county is now between a rock and a hard place. That is on each and every one of you that irresponsibly voted to approve it. We endure the same toxic work environment as the employees at the sheriff's office. We've tried to tough it out. ASME members have paid the price for your negligent decision-making. It's finally time for you to take a step in the right direction, show us some respect for our dedication to this county, and pass the emergency ASME MOU tonight. Thank you.
I would like to add to that, a yay and amen for every non-union employee in our offices because they feel exactly the same way.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I'd like to talk about the April 7th Farm Committee meeting for a moment. You voted on a couple things in that meeting, and just before the vote was taken, I asked if the things you were about to vote on were on the agenda. And the response I got was, quote, they're part of getting the farm done. That response came from the state's attorney. And while that may be, my question wasn't answered until the Attorney General sent me a binding opinion on the matter. The Attorney General said the agenda was insufficient for compliance with OMA. Your attorney was in the room. She ought to know. Every one of you has had OMA training. Those of you in the meeting should have known. Some did, most didn't. The Attorney General said it was patently overbroad and insufficient. There was nothing other than adjournment on that agenda that you could legally vote on, but you did anyway. Patent means easily recognizable and obvious. That should mean that you don't have to be a lawyer to pick up on the fact that it was illegal, since every board member's had OMA training as well. So, if it was obvious, then why didn't your legal counsel catch it? Why didn't Jeff, Brian, and David see it, since you've had OMA training? The AG went on to say that the items that were on the agenda did nothing but restate the committee's purpose for existing. In other words, you tried to be shady and got caught. As the chairman of the Farm Committee, Jeff, you didn't even inform all the members of your own committee about what was going on. I think 2 out of the 5 had no information about it going into the meeting. How are they supposed to vote on something when they have had no time to read, no time to research or anything?
Did you ask the other 2 if they knew about it?
Yes.
And your response, the response?
I think I was told they didn't.
You think, or what was the response?
I think, Jeff, I was told that they didn't know the details of what they were supposed to vote on until the meeting began.
I will answer for myself. I did not know.
No, I didn't. I asked them because they voted no on the items that were not on the agenda and should never come up for any vote whatsoever. And you should know that because you've had OMA training. I've got your certificate.
You just said you asked me.
No, I said I asked some.
Get back to the public body comment.
I said I asked some.
Yelling at each other, you asked two others. That's what you said.
I asked two. That one and that one.
Jeff asked, did you ask
David?
the other two?
Let's get back to the fact that this opinion is binding. A binding opinion doesn't just cover an occurrence in one place at one time. It applies to all public bodies across the state. Thanks to Mr. Slifer, Mr. Switz, Mr. Kaufman, and your state's attorney, Shelby County is a grade A, top class, A1 prime example to the rest of the state of what not to do. You committed a crime.
Is that a threat?
There's no threat in there at all. It's a fact. You committed a crime and you're an example to the rest of the state of what not to do. I'm going to ask for my time back because he keeps interrupting
I'll
me.
give you a little bit of time back.
Thank you. The AG went on to say the committee's agenda did not sufficiently inform the public of the committee's intentions. The law says you need to do that, you didn't do it. Do we have a problem with transparency? Do you have a problem with the people knowing what's going on? What do you have to hide? Nicole tried to offer some court cases as an excuse for your bad behavior, but these court cases were not congruent with the facts of the matter. Those court cases were decided before the section of OMA that you violated was established. When you got a document that was not a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office last year, you wanted to pick that up and fly to the moon with it. This is a binding legal opinion. This says you committed a crime. We're told that the Logan County AG opinion that was issued to them about their county farm was outdated by a statute that your state's attorney cited saying you could lease it. Then she goes and cites court cases that are outdated by the section of OMA you violated. Can't have it both ways. You don't get to cite something outdated if you've already said something outdated doesn't apply. The hypocrisy is outstanding. I guess being a lawyer doesn't count for as much as you might think it does. Some of you who've asked if you're smarter than the state's attorney, or asked if some of your fellow board members are attorneys themselves. I'll move on and make it quick. The AG said in his binding opinion that the most reliable indicator of legislative intent is the statutory language given its plain and ordinary meaning. We've heard that several times. It'll be interesting to see what approach you take. You guys took an oath to uphold the law, and you broke the law, and your state's attorney told you you could do it. If you're not going to uphold your oath, then resign.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Any further public body comment?
Yeah, Martha Fernhaber, citizen of Shelby County. It's unfortunate our state's attorney's not here tonight, and I heard she had COVID, and I pray that she recovers and doesn't have any of the severe negative consequences of that. But I believe it was an April 5th meeting when there was a special meeting regarding the forensic audit. And at that meeting, and I didn't write it down verbatim, but State's Attorney Cronky made a comment that she would not prosecute any law enforcement officers in the county because she has to work with them on various court cases. She has resigned herself, or recused, herself from the forensic audit issue. In that, I believe it was an April 5th meeting. If that's the wrong date, somebody can correct me. Board member Gary Gergany specifically asked for this board to have legal representation. Nicole said at that meeting that she could get the board legal representation. My question tonight is, do you all have that? Do you have your legal representation here tonight to help you get through what needs to get done to start resolving the issues that the forensic audit exposed? Do you have that? No. If the board does not have legal representation, then we, the taxpayers, don't have legal representation. In my personal opinion, there's no excuse to go from April 5th to July 14th after a specific request from this board to have legal representation to not have it. There's no excuse under the sun. And if I were a board member sitting up there right now, I would be very hesitant to act without legal representation. So once again, we kick the can down the road, and we kick it down the road, and we kick it down the road. Now, there's some of you board members up there tonight that have chosen not to run again for election. Everybody's own call, right? I'm begging of you to do your job between now and November to see to it that this board can act as a complete group, a whole group with teamwork, to get it right for the tax-paying citizens of this county. Because what has been going on is, in my opinion, disgraceful. And I think Jeremy spoke to it. We are an example of what we should not be as a county in the state of Illinois. That's embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing as a taxpayer. When I travel around, getting outside of Shelby County and have people make comments to me, it's embarrassing. The citizens of this county deserve better. The employees of this county deserve better. You all, to your fellow board members, should be treating them better. I will say to the agenda item tonight with the AFSCME vote, MOU, to give certain employees of the county a $2,000, what do they call it, emergency stipend, lump sum, whatever, and only give others $1,500. I don't care if that's what the AFSCME union agreed to or said they wanted. They went with that number because they didn't think there was any way that the female-dominated union offices would get what the male-dominated union offices are. And if you're going to tell me that county highway employees were more exposed to the public and COVID when it all hit and was running rampant than the ladies in this courthouse that had to tend to the public coming in here every day, wow. Wow is all I have to say. What you're voting on tonight might only say $1,500 for those employees, and I'll put the non-union employees in each department in that too. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Equal male to female, dominated departments. They all deserve $2,000. Thank you.
Can I check with the public body?
Yeah, I'm just going to respond to something Martha said, so that's fine.
Any other public body comment out there? Yes, ma'am.
Marcia White, taxpayer, been attending regular board meetings since February of 2019 after seeing the January 19 tape of the Edgar County Watchdogs coming and very nicely letting us know that we were doing some things and could change to be legal instead of illegal. And I am sorry to say that we have consistently, since then, remained primarily illegal. We have even had the gall, because I don't consider it nerve, we've had the gall to say, I don't care if it's legal or not, we're doing it. And we had a state's attorney who said, knowing that a situation she was speaking to was probably illegal, well, if they file, I'll file an appeal. That is a poor way to do business. We should be doing things legally. We should be doing things rightfully. We are pathetic. I want to commend those of you on the board, and even some past, who have tried to stand against the tide. And thank you, and please continue to stand. For those of you who continue to bury your head into sand because you're part of the good old boy system, let's leave it the same and go down the tube. You've probably already nearly bankrupted this county in your actions. Could we please, from this time forward, adding to Martha's comment, work together, do it right, do it legal, and begin to make the hard turn, because we have dug ourselves into a deep, deep hole. Thank you.
You need a public body comment?
Yeah. I don't think my name's Jake Cole. I live here in Shelbyville. My wife and I have had an antique business for about 60 years. I'm getting pretty sick of everybody running Shelby County down and the families I know and the friends I know. And of course, we were for keeping the Shelby County farm. And I think it's a well-known fact that Brad Halbrook didn't want to keep it, he wanted to sell it. For what reasons, we never found out, and we're probably never going to find out. So the watchdogs come along, they bust our butt to do everything possible to make sure we sell that farm. Well, about a couple of months ago, it was unconstitutional to sell the farm. Well, now the Halbrook wants to sell the farm, wants to farm the farm. They said it was unconstitutional to farm the farm. Now the Halbrook wants to farm the farm. I guess something happened in the Constitution that I missed in the news, because now you can custom farm it. And where is a law that says the only thing you can do is custom farm it? I mean, I don't understand what you guys have against Shelby County. And why didn't, when you were talking to your friend Doug Wolf, why didn't you tell him about your problem with
You're supposed to address the board.
with Keith Petard? And
You're supposed to address the board.
Excuse me, he can talk all he wants to talk. If you take offense to it, you can,
Public comment is to address the board. Do I need to read the statute?
he is addressing the board, which is to us.
He's looking at us and talking to us.
when you were talking to Keith Petard, or when you were talking to Doug Wolf, why didn't you tell him about Keith Petard and saying he owed the county $37,000, but you had to pay him, or the county had to pay him $8,000 or something? This is like everybody that doesn't agree with you is a jerk and stupid and should quit their office. I mean, I don't get all this crap.
All right.
Wow.
That's good. Amen.
I'm going to speak to the Keith Petard issue because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And Barb and you, Brian, were on that insurance committee, and you've not spoken up. But when the Keith Petard issue presented itself in June of 2020, when Consociate contacted the county about that issue, and we met with the state's attorney in an insurance committee meeting, and Consociate came down and met with us, and we did the plan. We had a plan with the state's attorney as to how that situation was going to be handled. And we were to wait for the final numbers. We did that. There was $120,000+ at the secondary insurance to be paid. We declined to pay that because in June of 20, we were provided a document that Medicare was there November of 18. We had just shy of $55,000 that the county paid out of the general fund for those claims for a private purchase, because those claims were not eligible to be on our insurance. That is what we discussed in a public meeting, insurance committee, with our state's attorney at the time, with Consociate, and we were told we were waiting for numbers. Consociate had to go back and request a refund of those funds from providers that had been paid with taxpayer dollars. They did that. We got nothing. And then after they sent the final numbers in January of 21, and I came to you, but we had another insurance committee meeting. Barb, you were not able to attend, and it was you. Terry Metzger was on the board then. And you said you were going to the state's attorney to take her the numbers so that we could file either civil or criminal in court. Then I talked to you at the March meeting, and you still hadn't talked to the state's attorney. So I sent the state's attorney an email, said, I don't know whether it's criminal or civil, I don't know, but we are out $54,397.01, because Consociate had gotten not one dime back in reimbursements for claims that should have never been paid by the Shelby County Insurance. We are self-insured. Every dime of those claims comes out of our general fund that is taxpayer dollars. Then, after we did that, right after that, Consociate got, I forget what the number was, and we had an insurance committee meeting and met downstairs. And Travis Schmidt from the Consociate Insurance was put on trial, and he point blank said the only thing he could assume happened was that Medicare had filed claims, those providers got their money from Medicare, and then in turn finally returned the money to Consociate, which they in turn returned to us to put back in the general fund. So to say that we all somehow treated that employee wrong is wrong. And to sit back and not tell the full story is wrong. But I will say the one thing that nobody wants to address. So you had $55,000 in claims, 120 that was sitting there, that was $170,000 in claims that our insurance provider thought we had in claims. That took our premium from $773 per employee. That helped increase it to $900 per employee. Because that's what they counted toward our expenses in that amount of time. That affected every employee in this county that's on the insurance. It affected every taxpayer in this county that pays a large chunk of those premiums every month. And so the money that we returned to Keith, because part of he was paying his premium. Part of that premium goes into the insurance fund to pay those claims. Part of it goes to Consociate for their administration. And we have a breakdown. In that breakdown, we return to Keith, after we reimburse the county, everything that we were owed that we had put in. Can't get back the premium increase. That can't come back. That's why Keith Petard got a check. And he did not get the full amount that he had paid in, because we did not get every dime back. But because it was such a lengthy process, when Consociate had given up, and Travis has told me since then, he said, I have no idea, we've never seen that money like that come back in that length of time. But thank God we got it. Because if we hadn't gotten that money back, we would have never gotten money. But the truth needs to be told about that situation. Amen.
Any other public body comment? Yes, sir.
I just want to say thanks for speaking the truth and correcting misinformation that was presented just prior to you speaking. Thank you.
Any other public body comment? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Spoken comment for Shelby Co. I'd like to make a comment on what's been said here tonight about some of our members in our county board. And I have to feel they've been doing a real good job of standing up for us. They have taken a pledge and an oath to represent us as citizen taxpayers of this county. And I would hope to think the rest of us will get behind them. And I'd like to say one more thing before I'm done here. I worked for a major company for well over 30 years. I know what a sectional discrimination suit is all about. Do we have any idea in this county we're about to replace? That's what we're going to get into real soon if we don't get this settled and get it done quick. It is not something pretty, not something that we want to have to face. We have a lake out here that people from all over the state and all over this area love. And all they do is talk about how they love this area. Why don't we represent it like the citizens we are? Thank you.
Any other public body comment? Any other public body comment?
I just wanted to kind of address to Martha, I mean, she, in her comment to us about I get the passion that you have about, I believe that the girls that the workers in the courthouse were probably more exposed than the county workers. Unfortunately, you have unions that negotiate on your behalf, and that's what was agreed to. And I feel like putting it on us for voting is not really fair. I mean, not fully fair, because maybe they should take that up with their union reps if they don't feel like they were represented correctly.
And I would counter that with, number one, you called them girls.
Well, no, this is her floor.
Listen, maybe I'm not politically correct. I apologize. Workers, women, I apologize to anybody I offended with that. But the ladies that work in the courthouse, an all-female agenda versus an all-male agenda. I don't know that that's the case, and I don't know that it's fair that you put that on us, that that's what we're voting against. We're voting what was agreed to by the union that was taken and negotiated between the committee members and the union rep. And if it goes any further than that, I don't feel that's on the board. And I don't feel like the board should be put down for that.
You finished?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Do I have additional time remaining?
Give me a moment to do some paperwork here, and then I will get with you. If you would like to rebuttal, you have 1 minute, 14 seconds to have.
I would just like to say that's not the first time that board members call them girls. Teresa's called them girls, I believe Barb's called them girls.
I don't know,
They're
I'm a
not-
girl.
We don't call them boys, we don't call the sheriff deputies boys. We don't go to the boys that work for the sheriff's department. They are professional women, as are the non-union people. There's three members? I'd like to know who negotiated on behalf of the county. And yes, they have a union rep, but when they have been mistreated for decades, they didn't get a raise for how long? How many years? So when their union rep, who, I don't know who the person was, but is just trying for something because they haven't gotten it for how long in comparison to the other departments, yes, somebody negotiating on behalf of the board could say, I know that's all you're asking for, but we owe you more. You deserve better than that. That's all I'm saying, Julie.
I get it, I get it.
Cassie?
I just want to point out that there's an entire agenda item on here about that specific topic, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss this if we can. And I intend to.
Any other public body comment? Any other public body comment? Any other public body comment? Seeing none, we will move on to number 5. Bill Schmitz with the zoning discussion on a resolution to rezone a parcel from ag to general business.
Yeah, I got a petition for a zoning amendment by Nicholas and Rebecca Sloan, Section 33, Shelbyville Township. 911 address is 921 North, 2075 East Road, Shelbyville, Illinois 62565. The petition is to rezone from agricultural to general business for the purpose of manufacturing and selling firearms. That petition has gone in front of the Shelby County Planning Commission and the Shelby County Board of Appeals. Both have approved the petition with a couple of modifications. The first modification is no public range is to be constructed. However, firearms may be fired for business and testing purposes. And the second modification is all manufactured firearms must have visible and lawful serial numbers placed on them prior to sale. Nicholas is here to answer any questions for the board, and I'll answer any questions you might have also.
Motion to approve this resolution. Second. Any discussion? Yes.
I just want to say that I personally drove out to Nick and Rebecca's farm, house. He's put a lot of effort into this project with what he's built. It's going to be a Class A operation. He's going to have alarm systems, cameras. Impressed me to the extent that he took this to be a professional place, and I believe that 99% of your sales are going to be online, right, Nick?
Yes, sir. The rest of it will be by phone only. If somebody doesn't want to pay for shipping, they live close, they can come by phone only.
Anything you want to add about your operation?
We're going to sell and manufacture firearms, as well as we're going to sell ammunition and reloading components. No public shooting range at all.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Number 6, discussion of vote about issuing a Class 1 liquor license, which is a package to Gregory's Resort in Oak Hall Township. It would be prorated out since the new licenses go into effect Sep 1. So it would be prorated out. The Liquor Commission did meet go over this license. We are all in agreement as Liquor Commission that there is license available in Oak Hall Township. I will take a motion, please.
Makes a motion when we approve the Class 1 liquor license to Gregory's.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Teresa. Any discussion?
Where is this resort?
I believe it's out by the marina. Am I correct?
We're right before the marina.
The two young people here are the, I'm not even trying to give your name because I'm not good with names.
My family.
Annie, yes.
Gregory, so we're right before the marina and the campground, right on the right-hand side. We have a little general
You
store.
say the marina, you're talking about Finley?
No, on the Lithia Springs one, in Shelbyville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's in Oak Hall Township.
Thank you.
Brian, just to clarify, just so we know everything's, initially we thought that Oak Hall Township could only have one liquor license.
There's 3 available in Oak Hall Township for the liquor.
And so the 3, they fall into the 3rd then?
There's I did not bring that. I had it laid out and I did not bring it. There's 5 or 6 different types of licenses for liquor. Package 1, this is a Class 1, it is packaged liquor only. Then you've got like a Class B, 1.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure
That is like
it's
a
safe to keep the license
for
and there's not going to
dining,
be any.
restaurant business, and you got another sub one underneath that. That is for gaming. And you got your winemaking, and you got your restaurant, something else. You got your distillers, you got your banquet halls, you got your golf courses.
Okay.
So this is just and some of those are less. Some of them might only be one in the county, in each township. Some of them are multiple. We're working through it as a liquor committee now, trying to kind of make everything a little simpler. But this is just for a packaged liquor license, Class 1. 3, each township gets 3 if they're a wet township. If they're dry, it's moot point. So there is available liquor license for this township still. The committee did agree to allow this in our vote. That's where we stand. It's been properly made motion. If this is proper second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. I think I'll skip number 7. No. Mr. Vanderberg, would you please?
Good evening. It was a couple months ago that we were able to kind of talk about the report that we issued, and at that time I said that I would be glad to come back and talk to you about any questions you had after you had a chance to look at it and provide any additional assistance. So I'm here this evening with no particular agenda or thing to communicate other than to be in response to any questions or issues that you guys may have. Seeing none? No.
Anybody have any questions for John?
I just don't want to be the first to raise my hand, but I will. Okay, so there's been major discrepancy about this $6,000, and you have people saying, oh, well, we spent all this money for an audit, and come to find out we owe the taxpayers $6,000, or the county employees $6,000, and I've tried, beat my head against the wall, put it in black and white, to try to get people to understand this $6,000 is a balance of 2 much larger numbers. It's not simply just writing a check to employees for $6,000 and making this problem go away. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Correct. It's a matter of semantics.
And
it
so,
is a net $6,000. It does not mean the error is $6,000. It is a net. Now, I don't imply either direction other than that you have 2 very large numbers that happen to be very close to the same.
and I believe there's some people in this room who are promoting the theory of it's just $6,000. So could you maybe clarify for them that it's not just $6,000?
You all had dramatic errors. They happen to be similar in amount. Okay, so you had net underpayments to certain members and net overpayments to certain members. But, when we went into it, we had no idea if they would come close to balancing out or not. And I make no representation that that means you only owe $6,000. I would say what that means is your errors happen to be fairly coincidentally close to the same, within $6,000 of being the same. But I would not make the assertion that that means you have to write a $6,000 check and it goes away. That would be in no way my comment.
Right.
How much overpayment did we do to employees? Roughly, what's the number?
Well, the total error that we accumulated for the report was $759,000, as I remember. That number, plus or minus, half of that number, plus or minus $3,000 is going to say, how that worked out. So,
but in the wages and that, it was well over $300,000. We wrote checks for that. The money is gone.
The effect of people being underpaid would have been in the neighborhood of $375,000, and the people that were, amounts that should have been received by people would have been in a similar amount. Yes.
Okay, so actually, if we don't recoup the money we overspent, and we would get sued by those that got underpaid, it's going to be at the $700,000 level. The taxpayer's going to foot the bill for it.
I can't answer that, but that's a possible.
If that happened,
that is a plausible resolution to that issue.
Yeah. So I think people need to understand that we're talking $700,000 as a possible loss to the taxpayers in this county.
I will caution you, that number could be many multiples of $700,000.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking the number.
I agree, but I want to make sure that we don't put a bookend around $700,000.
No.
Of your loss. I feel this, if these issues are not rectified, I believe that you could be looking at many more dollars than that. And
Possibly
you need to address it with that level of importance. Yes.
Yeah. How would you rate our problem with the sheriff's office in the past, with all the things that's going on? Do we have a minor problem, or do we have a major problem?
That's a meaningful number to me.
But it is a real problem.
Yes, it was a real problem during the audit period. I have not looked at anything since that time to understand if those things have changed.
And part of your numbers may not be accurate because you didn't get all the information that was needed to compute. 6 years. You only really got to process 3 of the 6 years that we requested.
We were able to do from January of 2015 through July of 2020.
Okay.
So kind of going off of that, there's been a lot of talk just within the community that this isn't quite as big a deal as some people have made it out to be because the criminal investigation didn't go anywhere. So thinking about some of what you said when you came here, particularly the phrase that jumped out at me was that we were woefully inadequate. That was a very catching phrase. What sort of government agencies or entities outside of the criminal charges that didn't go anywhere could we be dealing with in the future?
Well, I think the entities that you under or overpaid would be Social Security, Internal Revenue Service, IMRF. Those would be entities that you may have over or underpaid. There would be other entities that are designed to protect rights of employees. Those would be people like Department of Labor, Illinois Department of Labor, entities like that that would say this is a fair or unfair treatment to employees, which doesn't necessarily correlate with an amount that was over or underpaid. It could, but...
And that's where you're getting this multiples of $700,000.
You have exposure that is beyond the dollars that you paid, yes, potentially.
If we don't get some of these things straightened out, is there a good chance the Department of Labor will eventually come in on us?
I can't speak to that effect. They can come in, anybody for whatever reason they need, I don't control that, but I would say if they did, you would probably be remorseful of that situation, yes.
If you were to take any one single employee that was overpaid, what do you believe would be the top end of that employee? How much overpaid they would have been?
Well, I was prepared for somebody to ask that question, so Congratulations. So the thing is, there are factors that we could take into account in determining people's overpayment or underpayment, and then factors that started to spider so far out of control that we couldn't change so many variables at any given time. So I can say, for our audit report purposes, I would say you might have somebody that was overpaid, you know, I couldn't put a specific name to it, but it could easily be a few $1,000s, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Certain circumstances, it could have been significantly more for more years. I wouldn't want you to rely on that too heavily, but I would say that number could be meaningful for anybody that you felt that you could try to recoup that for.
So you feel like at least $3,000, but there could be higher.
There would be people that
you
could be more
didn't
than
take
that.
any particular employee and some of
There would be
that.
people that could be more than that, for sure.
Okay. So if, on the same extent, another employee was underpaid, I would think most of us would, at the end of the year, go, boy, I'm not going to have near the retirement that somebody else does because have funds, and so how many years can they come back and request to be paid correctly?
That's probably a little bit of a loaded question that they have the ability to go back a certain number of years, but then they have the ability to expand that based on the things that they find. So statute of limitations, I don't intend to be an expert on all the areas that could influence this, but I would say statute of limitations has different expectations if they view it as intentional, fraudulent, or erroneous. So each entity would have its own opportunity to apply that label of erroneous or intentional. And that would influence, I believe, how far back they might want to go.
So we would easily have if you're looking at $3,000 or $3,500, we're looking at $6,000 to $7,000 difference between employee A and maybe employee B.
Potentially.
Okay. And that is just the straight payroll, or would that include the insurance, health insurance, IMRF?
There are enough errors in enough directions that there are health insurance that didn't come out properly, dental that wasn't deducted properly, comp time that wasn't paid appropriately. I mean, if we factor all of those things in, you'd probably have a 15-point question of, do we count this, do we not count this, do we go on the wrong rates from the 2015 contract or not? You know, this situation is grossly modified if you take the literal 2015 to 2017 contract that says your years of service at 2011 determines where you fall on the salary matrix. That could be a $10,000 difference in the calculations that we couldn't spider through all the calculations because, you know, is that an error or is that intentional that you guys chose to say your years of service at September 1st, 2011 determines where you're placed on the 2015 salary matrix? It seems illogical.
So would I be correct in saying that it exponentially increased their...
That would exponentially increase your numbers, yes. $10,000 per employee, potentially.
Right now, we're under the impression that we don't have anyone that's pursuing this. But would you say that there's a good chance that many of those employees don't know whether they're over or under?
That would be speculation on my part. I don't know that.
So what happens next?
No public body. No public body. So, Cassie?
Sharon actually had her hand up first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon.
I'm still.
You're blocked, buddy.
It's hard to see. That's why I looked down.
So, because of all the problems and we are woefully inadequate, in your words.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you're telling us exactly what we need to hear. I would guess we need guidance on, you can't fix it all at once. You have to take baby steps. You know, how do we turn around to start to fix this? We need to be better at this. We need to make the county good and whole again. How do we do this?
I knew somebody was going to ask that question too, so we're 2 for 2 so far. You know, one of the things that I thought that was most egregious in this is that you guys had a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, which was a legal document between the FOP, the employees, the county, all parties involved. And if you look at that contract, I bet you could mark up 70% of that contract saying that you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. 6 people signed that. 3, I think 3 from the FOP, or from the county side, 3 from the employee side, and maybe an attorney or 2 signed it. And yet nobody took this document that identified exactly what the expectations were and said, is this what we're doing? You could have mitigated 70% of your problems if you just would have said, we say that they're going to move down on the salary scale at their anniversary. Are they doing that? We're not doing that. My goodness, let's fix that. We say we're going to take out health insurance $40 every paycheck. Are we doing that? No, we're only doing it 24 times. We say we're going to pay people for anything over 8 hours as overtime. Are we doing that? Nope. Salary scale. People didn't fall in the right place. You could fix, it's an estimate, 70% of your problems if you just simply would have read the contract to understand what it was and then made sure that's what you were actually doing. There was a complete disconnect there.
Like on the health insurance, whose responsibility was to mark that? Was it over there in their records or over here? I mean, who?
I would say that is, I'm speculating that is a payroll deduction that is set up to come out the first 2 times of every month, and if there's a 3rd payroll in a month, we don't take it. That's a procedural thing that happens, and I couldn't say who would be responsible for that as much as to say it was more along the lines of what I would say is being unaware of what was in the contract.
And I was going to say, I've looked at it very closely, and I agree with you that the biggest part of the contract was ignored. That's where the biggest part seems to have happened, and then nobody called it. I mean, we've had 3 contracts, and basically the first one and the second one had lots of mistakes. We were not following 70% of what was in there. Nobody was catching it, and it makes me wonder who was supposed to catch it. So we're obviously very lax in our checks and balances, and we had none. I mean, they got signed wrong, and not only once. I mean, the 15's wrong, the 18's wrong, then the one that was signed last year in 21. I think everything has been corrected. Everything's being stepped in to follow the contract. But those other 2, there's more mistakes in them than there are anything right. So are the mistakes because nobody ever looked at it, but yet somebody must have thought they knew what was in there, because it got sent in that way every pay period for 5 years, under 2 different contracts, under numerous sheriffs, under numerous people in the courthouse offices. I mean, everything changed, but the problem never got any better from what I can see of your recollection and reading the contracts. So where do we go? I mean, we know the contracts have been corrected, but now how do you make sure the contracts are followed? What do we need to have to get there? Because there's no doubt in my mind, those people that were working 4 10-hour days, they knew when they went to 4 10-hour days. They knew when they had 4 days off. They knew their schedule changed from the 5/8s to the 4/10s and the 4 off. And all that was known by the employees. Why nobody else, knew? I don't know. Like in our case, we never see a payroll sheet. I mean, I'm on the law enforcement committee, and I've only been on it for, I think, 3 years, but we never see a pay sheet. So, I mean, we didn't catch it there. I don't know how many people see it and didn't catch it, but to go on for 5 years, it was a whole lot of different people on the employee side. It was a whole lot of people on this side, and it didn't get done. So obviously, that tells me that something in our system is really wrong, and I don't think we have a bunch of people that were taking advantage of the system. I think we got a whole bunch of people that didn't pay attention to no details.
I would say, to try to address the question, I would say, you probably have a culture that has said, this is the way we've done it for 40 years, and that's the way we're going to do it for the next 40 years, irrespective of what this document says it's supposed to be. And so one of the things that is kind of a meaningful thing to me is, you have to trust at some level Okay, you guys can't spend 40 hours a week going over what people have done in different departments. So you have to have a certain level of trust. But you also have to periodically verify. You guys could have verified any number of issues within this contract, any number of times. For about 15 minutes, it would have taken you to just say, let's look at this and see, let's take this section of the contract. Are we taking out health insurance 26 times, or are we taking it out 24? You can tell it like that. But it was never done.
And nobody was doing it.
And so my exhortation to you would be, if you have a culture of not caring what your contracts say, you need to address that and change that culture to be, this is what it says, this is what we're going to do. If we don't like what it says, we're going to do an MOU or something to document that we don't like what this says and we agree to change it. But that's not what's happening at all during what I saw.
During your period, it hasn't. It has started now, but I'm just like you. I didn't see any of that in the 15 to 20 report.
Bobby?
So to kind of respond to what you were saying, I'll remind everybody that in January of 21, after the recommendation of the state's attorney to the sheriff, which was Sheriff Coons at the time, when they were talking about anniversary date and vacation, the advice was follow the contract. And there was 17 grievances filed on that. It was called past practice, but yet that's never what we agreed on. So the whole point of that statement is, like you said, they've been doing what they wanted to do for years. Who knows, 10, 20, 30 more. And then when you agree to something as the employer, as the board, and you have the employee body that's done something differently, they don't mesh. So at some point in time, we have to take a step back and say, okay, how do we get the contract followed to a T? And I don't have the answer for that. But
Got to be an answer.
I
That's
can remember
what I'm
when
asking.
they
What's the
went
answer?
to 10 hours, they said, well, we'll still be working 40 hours a week. So there was no thought about the overtime.
And that's to verify.
Right.
Well, but remember, there are not 52 8-day periods within a year. There's only 45.
Right.
So if you're working 4 days in 8, that is not the same as 4 in 7. And I don't know if nobody ever thought about that or if they didn't care. I can't tell that. But I go back to my issue of trust, but verify.
Exactly.
Some of these things are not terribly difficult to verify. You just got to look.
Gary? Get Gary, and then I'll get you, Bart.
Why if I'm working 10-hour days and I have a sick day or a personal day off, why would I turn that in on my time sheet as 8 hours worked instead of 10?
The sick days and the personal days were turned in as 10-hour days. The problem is that on the personal days, they were granted at 3 days a year, but those days were contemplated as 8-hour days. Okay, so whenever they granted personal time every year, they said, oh, you've got 30 hours available to you. But you didn't have 30 hours, you had 24.
Bart?
Most of the payroll that we always see and everything has already been paid. So, I mean, we look at this payroll and we don't really, there's no way you can actually question it just by looking at the payroll sheet. So there's no way, like, for as a committee to even know. I'm just saying it's already been paid, and there's no way we're gonna know what that contract says as to whether it's being followed on that payroll sheet. And some of it has to do with office head of that office, and I'm not saying maybe we shouldn't have looked at it, figured out a way to look at it, but we've always been told they manage their own departments, and you can't micromanage it, and to more or less kind of butt out of it. That's what we've always been told. So, not that we, didn't care what was going on, but it's just that we didn't have access to all the information either. So.
Cassie?
But to clarify, ultimately, it is our responsibility as the board to be the checks and balances.
You guys are the management of the county, and the management manages the managers.
So we have to find a way to solve this.
There is accountability that flows to different levels, and if you guys are at that level, then I would say that, yeah, you should take that as your responsibility.
Mark,
So who ultimately was responsible for the failures in the record keeping? Would that be the sheriff?
I would tell you, I can't think of somebody not responsible for it.
So would
I
you
mean,
say?
I would levy that
departments?
against the board for not noticing. I would levy that against the department for not paying attention to those details. The blame is broad. It gets slathered really broad in this.
So as Bobby brought up, when this was brought to the attention of the board and Erica tried to bring it out what was being done wrong and asked for us to look at it. And we dug our heels until we finally had John come and do the forensic audit. But it should have happened much sooner, and things that should have reverted back to the contract as soon as it was noticed. But instead, it was, well, we've been doing it this way, we're just going to keep on. So I know it personally myself, in 2 years, nobody really tried to fix it. We just kept dragging our heels.
Bobby?
with availability of log in, log out records, in your personal, or in your professional opinion, would you say it's prudent to apply that to an addendum to the report?
I expected that question too. That's a tough situation. I myself, throughout the audit process, did not see anything that demanded a person comply with log in, log out. Now, I was not afforded that report firsthand from the county at the time. I was told specifically by a person that your systems had been updated, that report no longer existed, and it couldn't be gotten unless potentially the software vendor would do it, and that we would need to have judicial powers to get it. Okay, so...
Excuse me.
If it had been provided at the time, which it wasn't, if it had been provided, I would have looked to say, under what authority were people required to use this versus encouraged? And I didn't address that issue, so I don't want to speculate, I don't want to reopen, I don't want to do anything else to that, because that's I would say that ship has sailed. I mean, the log in, log out report would provide evidence of when people logged in and logged out. Would it provide a proof positive effort of when they did or didn't? If people believed they didn't need to log in and out, would they have? I can't answer that. If they knew that if a person was paid based on what they logged in and logged out, then I'd say, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But if I'm getting 40 hours of pay, whether I logged in for 10 or whether I logged in for 52, what does it matter if I log in or log out? Your pay should be tied into that log in, log out in some capacity. If it's not, I'm not sure how enforceable it would be. At the time of my audit, I didn't have to address that because I couldn't get it firsthand.
Well, I've got it from the sheriff's department, so it's from 18, 19, I believe. So it's at least 1 year.
There was most of 1 year in it, from my knowledge.
At least it would give you a snapshot of at least a year.
Within my report, we had to discuss an awful lot of, or look at an awful lot of issues. And I try within anything that I do, based on the potential for civil or criminal behavior, to make sure I don't put anything in there that I believe is so arguable that we would lose, or that it would be criticized. That's one that I can't say tonight that I would know whether that would be criticized or not. Based on the fact that people weren't required to log in and log out, their pay wasn't based on it. Should they have done it? Well, yeah, but you guys probably will have to negotiate that. That's probably a bargaining situation you have to address. That's probably not just a... But that gets beyond the scope of what I can say. That's for your legal counsel and you guys to decide if you're required to.
Did you see any change in the timesheets that came from the sheriff's department over between the 2015 and the 2020 time that you looked at them?
Yeah, there were some changes. The behavior changed.
And the sheets themselves did change during that period?
There were factors that changed, yes.
Okay, because I know after that they changed, and I wondered if...
Behaviors changed partway through the audit period.
Okay, so they
weren't corrected, but they were
changing how they did it. They were still doing the wrong things from the contract, but they were accounting for it differently. You did see a change in the sheets. So somebody was changing some procedures, but they still weren't tying it to the contract. And won't be until the end of this year when it goes into effect in the middle of this contract. But at least somebody was making an effort for some reason to change the timesheets.
Cassie?
So you only looked at one department for a set period of time, correct?
Correct.
You made a few comments toward the end of the last time you were here that made me wonder. Do you have concerns about what you would find if you looked at the entire county?
Great question.
Sit down. Come on.
Great question.
I am, by my very nature, I have to presume that there are problems until I can prove that there are not. Okay, that's what my job requires of me. I have to believe there is a potential for it to be wrong until I can prove that it's right. You had an egregious number of errors within one department. I cannot speak to whether any other departments have any problems or not. I have no knowledge of that. My initial inclination, anywhere that I went, whether it was Shelby County or any other local government anywhere, would be to say, you potentially have problems everywhere. That's just the nature of what I have to be. But I can't say that your behavior within the sheriff's department would correlate with behavior within other departments. It could, but I can't draw that conclusion. I would presume it exists in any local government, irrespective of whether it's this one or any other.
Thank you.
Barb?
Well, didn't it say that it wasn't criminal? And so it said it wasn't criminal. So it isn't like people were doing this on, really out to like get the county or get somebody. It's like, so we've made a lot of errors, so we're in the process of correcting these type of things now. So that's one good step forward. I mean, because we're aware of these things, so now we're correcting it, but it wasn't criminal. So.
Sharon?
And I guess my question, that's a good comment, Barb, but what are we doing to correct it right now? Which is what are we doing?
Well, the sheriff's department is changing how they do it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Derek?
Mr. Vanberg, you pinpointed the problem. You've identified it. You guys have to fix it now. If I was running this as a business and somebody said I messed up payroll, I would say, who do I owe? Who owes me back?
Right.
I would get a list, every employee, plus or minus. I made that request. So my questions are, did that request make it to you? Do you have that information that would be laid out that way to where we can start fixing it?
So it doesn't exist in that format without unimaginable effort. And what it's going to take in that is decisions that I don't have the authority to make. For instance, do you apply the rate of pay as identified in the contract for 15 and 18 through 18 that is based on seniority of 2011? That's that would have a huge difference on the numbers. Do we count that or not count that? That's not for me to decide. That's for either legal counsel or you guys to decide. What about health insurance for people that didn't have it come out? Are you going to take that out on everybody or not? What about people, the directions that go as we calculate it are mind-boggling. So we would have to set some parameters of these are the things we want to consider as we recalculate things. I would imagine you will have challenges coming up with consensus on this is what we count and this is what we don't. But you may be able to.
Mark, I know you had your hand up before you speak, sorry.
A lot of people aren't going to like this question. How much has our current treasurer cost us then?
Oh, I couldn't say that.
Has she cost us in these legal matters?
I wouldn't be qualified to answer that. Cost is a vague term that could be applied to an awful lot of things.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. Was she the cause of any of these overtures?
I would say not her, per se. We can say that department, I can say, had some culpability in some of these things. Previous
to her?
Well, potentially even after. I mean, I didn't look at it in that regard, but potentially even after, like the health insurance, I don't know if that was fixed right away. That blame does not easily fall on any one particular person.
Well, if you don't mind making a little statement. then my belief is that most of the information that's going around our county about our treasurer has been very falsely accused of costing the county a lot of money. When it was not her errors to start with.
Barb?
No one said they were her errors, but on this, Nicole sent out this email and it says she had spoken with the counsel for the FOP and there's no imminent threat of litigation. The FOP has not received any complaints from any of its members, and without knowing which employees were underpaid or overpaid, there's nothing to litigate from either side at this time. So I think that kind of answers it right there, whether.
But they have 10 years on that.
Gary?
if I understand right.
I guess my question is, I think we need somebody to lead us in the right direction, that knows what they're doing, and then, like Derek said, we can do it, but is that an attorney or an accountant? What kind of a person do we need that can look at where we need to go forward to do it right? Because we know the contracts have been corrected, but how do we get the systems in place that we're checking, that we're following the contract, and on a regular basis, it just happens. We don't have to jump in and audit something. It happens every payroll that you see that it is or is not followed, and who does it, and who do we get to lead that direction? Is it an attorney or accountant?
Well, I think there's two separate issues there. An attorney or accountant gets involved in whether you do anything in regards to your past errors and issues to deal with. That's separate from what you do going forward. You don't have to be an attorney or an accountant to confirm that you're complying with the contract. If I understood your question properly, the complying with the contract can be done by any of you, or you can assign those tasks within other people within the county, I'm sure. It doesn't have to take a specific format.
What kind of a person would you look at for the issues that you audited? Would that be an attorney or would that be an accountant?
I think an accountant.
An accountant? Okay.
But I believe you need an attorney to give you guidance on what do we have to do versus what can we do. And that's where I think you need to adequately address that. I'm not qualified to answer that for you.
We need both then.
Probably.
Okay.
Julie?
Okay, have you talked to Nicole? I know she recused herself from the criminal part of this in the event that there was prosecution or whatever. That's been resolved. The board needs representation in righting this wrong. Is she willing to do that? I mean, there's going to be no prosecution necessarily. I mean, I think everybody sitting in this chair knows we need an attorney in this. Does anybody disagree with that statement?
Did you read her?
I did, and so she's
And
willing.
in that, she said she believes that we should consider appointing a special counsel.
Okay, so she does not want to represent the county in this matter.
I think she could appoint us one, but I don't think she could be, or Jay either one.
Okay. So we've asked multiple times, and if Nicole were here, I would say the same thing. We need to kind of get this nailed down. We can't keep continuing, well, I can appoint an attorney, I can appoint an attorney. We need her to do it. It needs to be done.
But she cannot do anything without the board
Okay,
asking
so
her to do it
then
and taking a
we
vote
need
to do it.
We need to do that then. So that, I guess, is something for the next agenda?
Correct.
Gotcha.
John, in the conversation that you had with Nicole, one of the things here, the things that you feel would be good for the county in the future is the possibility of hiring a full-time internal auditor. Would you elaborate on that for me?
Well, I think it goes to this gentleman's question about how do we assure that the county is following what the contracts are. That's what that person does countywide. So that would be a person with a skill set to follow details, follow up on things, verify that things are as they're supposed to be. So that could be a prudent move for the county. And quite honestly, you need to take some level of action to restore confidence that these behaviors are problematic and are looking to be addressed and changed.
I like that idea, by the way,
Just out of curiosity, I know you work with the county side of this, and there's been a lot of, obviously, we know there's been missed payments, overpayments, underpayments. idea how possibly this could get far out of hand?
No, I have not.
I mean, to me, if the union had any kind of idea of this, they'd have been jumping up and down. So that kind of tells me there was some kind of, I know there's nothing in writing, you have to go off the old contract. But they're not going to allow that kind of stuff to happen without some kind of agreement, a handshake agreement, or something. I mean.
But they're bound by what was filed.
I understand that.
And that's where I would come back to.
And that's why I asked you if you had talked to them.
No, I did not have any discussion.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, Gary.
On our annual audits, for years, there's been comments about we were ripe for fraud, that we were not paying attention to what our accountant was telling us. No, this has been known for some time. It's been pointed out. We had an accounting firm, or an audit firm, that just left us short on contract. They had enough of it, or away from them. None of those, we've had a new payroll policy that the board approved, and we still have it enacted. We've sat here and watched it happen. And nobody wanted to rock the boat or fix the problems.
Yeah.
Sharon.
Ultimately, we're responsible, I understand that. To go back to the simple start of payroll in a department, when payroll was turned in, the department heads, and maybe Eric, the department heads sign off on timesheets or vacation time they want, or the department heads approve all of that? Is that the way that works? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so, and this was asked a few months ago, and I will ask it again. Maybe we need to start with doing training sessions with the department heads within the county on what they need to look for, how to sign off, how timesheets get filled out. I know that's very basic, but it sounds like we need to go back to basics to start getting it right.
Bobby?
Yeah, so kind of to that point, after that meeting in January, I would reiterate that I think it would be prudent that the department head reads the contract and distributes that contract to the entire department.
Yes.
It seems, I can't say left or right, yes or no, that that contract has never been distributed. However, by the comments made in that meeting, I'm not sure that they haven't. So if they were to know something was wrong as an employee, they probably would have known. So to me, the department head needs to go through it, understand it.
Yes.
The problem is, like I said in that January meeting, as soon as it was recommended that we follow the contract, numerous grievances were filed because of past practice that we never agreed to, but it was past practice. Anyway,
Gary? I was just going to say, there's a few employees here, but I'm sure the ones I talk to, they have always got a copy of the contract. When that contract's approved, it is sent to all the members. They do receive one. I don't know if they have to sign for it or not. Does the sheriff know that?
Sorry, what was that question?
Do they have to sign for it when they get their copy of the new contract?
Do they have to sign? Well, I wasn't here when
saying, like, you weren't here in September when it happened, but.
So you hire somebody new, does that person sign a?
They get handed one by the union representation, and then there's numerous of them in the dispatch center and numerous of them downstairs in the deputy area. There's one pinned on the wall there.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was really intriguing that when that situation came up, the union rep said, we'll get many copies down here to the office. So that kind of indicated to me that there wasn't any copies. So it was indications and, so a lot of this goes down to education and paying attention.
Yes, education.
The department heads are elected officials. we can't tell them how to run their office and what they need to do. I mean, most of them are, responsible people, so they're gonna probably do it anyway. But I'm saying, they run their own office, they're elected, so you can't be telling them, you gotta do this and you gotta do that, you can't do it.
You can't tell them follow the contract.
No, you can't. They're elected.
Well, then what's the point in having a contract if we're not gonna follow it? We might as well waste our time.
I'm just saying they probably will, I'm just saying, we don't have the, I'm not gonna tell Jessica how to run her office.
If we're controlling millions of dollars.
Okay, Brian hit it right on that. The union rep is responsible to give every employee a contract, okay? The written contract and written agreement, because the union signs off on it. Not only the union has signed off, the union presidents and whoever the negotiators were, but they still have a responsibility to the memberships. If it's FOP, if it's AFSCME, whatever, they still have a responsibility to those employees to give those a contract. Now, if they follow the contract, they don't follow the contract, I don't know. But they are required to give each and every employee and where you said that you didn't think they did, that they have to do that.
Yeah, but like I said, it was the indicators in that meeting that threw me off, that maybe they did. Because if the contract wording is as such, and that's not what they're doing, why wouldn't they have said something, made a point of it?
Well, we're banging on, sorry, Bobby, you finished?
No.
We're banging on the contract thing, and I feel that part of this issue has been addressed and fixed. What we need to be considering here, and I've been writing some stuff down, whether this is what we want to do, this is what I've been trying to write down. If we're looking to go forward with this and get a special prosecutor, what are we looking for? What's the parameters we're going to go do? Are we going after every certain person, or we want to dig deep, start thinking about this stuff? And it doesn't have to be, it can't be decided tonight, but you need to think about this. That's one thing I think about. The other is, what are we looking for to fix? I mean, how to fix it, what are we looking for to fix? Then it comes down to the other stuff. How are we going to fund it? And where do we get the budget money at to do this? That's just some things you guys might have thought I was not paying attention, but I was kind of writing. That's stuff to start thinking about as a group and a board here that we need to have prepared coming towards the next meeting. Would everybody agree with that? Cassie had her hand up first.
Can we make a motion to go ahead and begin exploring
we can't, there's nothing on the agenda.
Can we put those on the agendas for next time?
We can do that. That's why I'm bringing this all up.
Can we put on the agenda for next time that we're going to begin exploring a position for an auditor, that we're going to explore special counsel, and that we're going to explore time card training?
What was the last one?
Time card training.
Oh. You have that added to the agenda for next month.
I think the first thing you need to figure out how you're gonna fund it, what it's gonna cost.
I'm not saying anything about how this needs to be ordered. Those are just things I wrote down that I felt were parameters, ideas that we could start building on to rectify this situation. We can talk about contract this all night long here, and we're not getting anywhere. Don.
John, if the board figures out that they can hire someone to audit the time sheets to see that we're doing things correctly according to the contract, how often, in your opinion, do they need to look at that? Is that something they need to do quarterly, once a month?
Well, that would really be dependent on the scope of what that person needs to look at. So that person would be looking at all of the departments within the county, and they would be looking not only at payroll, but they would be looking at accounts payable, they would be looking at reimbursements, they would be looking at cash and deposits to make sure those are correct. They would be looking at credit card transactions.
But that's all part of the total audit that does at the end annually.
No, your audit that's done annually is your financial statement audit. That has nothing to do with what we're discussing tonight. In your audit report, it will state very specifically, fraud is the responsibility of the company's management or the local government management. The responsibility for fraud falls squarely on you guys and the managers. It falls nothing on your auditors. Nothing. They say very explicitly that is not our responsibility. They will take your comments on it. They will follow up on things that, that you address as fraud, but they are not there to identify fraud. That does not happen. Every case that I've had has had an auditor that did not catch the fraud. And that does not mean the auditor was insufficient. It means the auditor does not look for fraud. That is not their primary responsibility. It is yours.
Just to go along with what Cassie said, in doing this, we have a 10-year span that we're trying to make sure we're covered on. So being ahead of the game to, if we have any claims come up in that 10-year period, we may better know where we're at.
I guess I really feel, like he just said in these notes, we've got the 15 to 20 thing to address and decide where we got to go from there. And then immediately, we've got to have a system of how our payrolls are processed so they're checked and compared with the contracts on a regular basis to know it's being complied to. So you're right, that's two different people, two different things, but I'd say both of those need to be done right away, and they both need to be voted on next month.
That has to do with elected
process payrolls. Brian can speak.
He was asked. Yes, go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, because I process, and we're saying how it's processed. Since I've been in
I
office-
agree with you.
Since
Sorry.
I've been in office since December of 15. Like, John, I would like you to speak to the one element in there where employees were underpaid $9,700 and some odd dollars for hours, over 80 hours worked, because you and I discussed that in the process. Because when I came across that issue in March of 2019, I called and I spoke with Under Sheriff McCall, and I said, why are we turning in 92 hours? We have to pay overtime on those 12 hours. He said, oh, we are. We take their overtime hours and we convert them to regular time. I said, not one more time, we're not. Because when we get an audit from the Department of Labor is going to come back and say, there's 12 hours here that you owe of overtime that you didn't pay. Now that, for whatever reason, those employees accepted that, and it's the same amount of pay, but we have absolutely no documentation that we paid those employees for those hours because they converted it to regular time, which now to a forensic auditor looks like they were underpaid. They were not. But we changed it, March of 19, because I said I will not process one more payroll without overtime on it for those hours. Every time a payroll has come into my office, and I have refused to pay because I looked at the contract and said, this is what the contract says, this is the way I'm paying it, we've had a grievance filed. I think we've got something like 13 grievances out there right now, as Bobby has spoken to. So my office does look at these. I have followed the contract. I have gone to the board. I've gone to prior committee members, and I was told to sit down, shut up, it's none of my business. If the department head says pay it, you pay it. We are, in essence, somewhat of an auditor through that payroll department before we write those checks. I've stood and I've not paid those checks when they're out of line with the contract, only to be grieved and have it played out in the public that I am yet again costing taxpayers of this county money. What I was doing was saving taxpayers of this county money.
John, so if there were, using that example, if there were 92 hours, 12 hours of overtime, all logged as regular time, what does that do for a retirement fund?
Well, there's multiple issues with that. But the issue with retirement is if it's a tier 2 person for SLEP, overtime is not counted in your retirement compensation. So if somebody has overtime that you're counting as regular time, it is going to over-report the compensation they have for SLEP tier 2 purposes.
So would that not be fraudulent?
Fraudulent implies intent. It can be erroneous or it can be fraudulent with the exact same circumstance. I can't say that that's fraudulent. I can say it could be, but I can say it's incorrect. I can also say it's incorrect. I know that we ran into a number of instances where people were paid. I remember one specifically that I believe was something like 126 hours of regular time in one payroll. Now, if you don't have proof to say that that was 80 hours of regular time plus whatever it needs to be to equal 126, whatever that is, then if the Department of Labor comes in, I anticipate they're going to look at that and say, if you can't prove otherwise, that's 46 hours that you should have paid at time and a half, and you only paid at time. And you're not going to have any defense of that. You don't have records to support it.
John, when we don't have the records to support that, can the Department of Labor assess fines to the county for improper record keeping?
I can't speak to their behaviors, but I would say it would not be unreasonable to believe that you could have fines and penalties for inadequate procedures. That is reasonable to believe that they could.
Cassie?
I mean, Mr. Bellwether is here, and I'm just wondering if we could get his insight, because this is his area of expertise.
Would you like to step into this conversation?
Be careful.
No, because you've already called them names, so I don't have to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, just as an amicus for the board. I agree with the honorable member here that an action plan is required to make progress. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to chew on his bone for a long time. I would encourage, if you're going to look at an internal auditor, that there are 9 defined duties of an elected auditor that would meet every criteria that you need to manage your contract. I'm not saying get an elected one. I'm saying hire an internal auditor and have them do those 9 duties. It will address every issue that you're talking about. Frankly, would be cheaper than having us do it for you. But I would have some kind of a motion in your next board meeting for deliberate actions. Time card training is an easy one. It reinforces process. It signals a change in direction. So I fully agree. Take action, move forward. If you wish, we can see what a prevailing wage for an internal auditor might be and stress that against your current draft budget, which, by the way, you should all get copies of the first draft either tomorrow or Monday. But I agree with this gentleman that internal auditing for not only this topic, but many topics that I'm involved in with your county, you need that tall pole in the tent that'll keep you in focus. So I agree with it, and I certainly agree. Quit chewing on the bone, take action, do something, take your next first step.
Quick question.
Is there any quick question?
Mr. Vandenberg, would you be able to provide a list of key issues that, as a board, we would need to decide in order for you to put together a plus or minus list of what's owed either way?
I could come up with a list of the things that I think somebody would have to address before you could calculate any amounts that are owed to or from anyone.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I can provide that to you, Brian, and then you can take care of however you want to do that.
Can you mail it, snail mail?
Certainly.
Because I sometimes don't see emails come through because I don't live by email. You can do both, but
All right.
send a hard copy,
Make sure you
please,
get
too.
it. Yep.
Or copy somebody on it so that she can make sure I see it. I think, are we at a good stopping point with Mr. Vandenberg here? John, I appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
You have a great evening. All right. Seems like we should be farther along than number 9, but number 9.
Number 8.
We're on number 8.
You're on, I marked 8 out. Okay, we're on even less. Okay, number 8. Discussion and vote to amend the liquor ordinance to set fees for all classifications of $600 annually. The liquor committee met roughly 2 weeks ago, give or take a few days, and looking to update the call it the liquor resolution, the governance part of the liquors. And in doing so, we saw there were some of them that were set at 500, some were at 600. We kind of discussed it. We thought just to make things easy on everybody, just make them all 600 and be done with it. That's the basis of what we're asking for here. Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Second. Mark? Anybody any discussion on this? Bobby?
Yeah, was there any indicators of why they were set at different rates? I mean, I'm not.
From looking at it, it didn't make any sense. I mean, the packaged liquor, I think, was one that was like at 500. Was it that because they want to encourage more packaged liquor license? I don't know what it was. Just make it simple. That way, we don't have to look and go, well, shoot, this one's, no, I told you wrong. It's actually 600, not 400, or whatever it be. Just simplify things a little bit. That's all it's about. You want to add anything, Mark or Teresa?
Unless she had some, Teresa, unless you checked into that other situation.
No, I haven't had a chance to. To me, it just makes it easier for whoever's administering.
Yeah.
They're all the same. They all cost the same.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We are again looking for an engineer at the highway departments. Last year we started running an ad, I think in, Mr. Spessard was retiring the end of October. We started running an ad in numerous professional sites throughout the state of Illinois for engineers. We put it in a couple papers, and we started doing that in, I want to say, late August, and ran them through probably into November. We had one application. We are now currently looking again. We've had that ad out since before Steve, we let Steve, terminate Steve's contract last month. We've got one person that's called. I'll be honest, no applications yet. I'm trying to think outside the box of how maybe we can get this out there so maybe more people will see it, and maybe we can get some applications. I think it was Monster is what I was looking at. It's like you fill it out, put it on there, and it goes out through the web. I thought it was, it's relative, I guess. If it's $280, I think is what it was roughly a month, but you get 10 applications, that's a relatively cheap way to get that taken care of and get a possible applicant that is solid and hireable. If it doesn't, and you run it for 2 or 3 months, then, what is it? So I'm looking for some guidance from the county, whether we want to go that route or we want to keep going the way we've done. Denny?
You and I have talked about this before, and a couple of my ideas is get your ad or whatever you want to put together and send it to every county in the state. I know they all got county engineers, but they've also got assistants and some people below that, they're just starting out. Also, every one of these engineers belong to an engineering society.
That's where it's been sent, those societies.
But also, just like I said, if you send it to every county, you're canvassing the whole state. Every year there's engineers that come out of school and they're going to work someplace. And that would be a large step up for them to be a lead engineer in a county.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying to some extent there. I think the newly graduated members of society with an engineering degree are not fully qualified yet to be a highway engineer, because there are certain tests and items that you have to be that qualification. So that part of it, I'm going to say, is unattainable.
but everyone has to start someplace.
I agree. I think I saw Cassie's hand.
That was my question.
Okay, and then Sharon?
The one sounds like a good idea, anything we can do to get some interest in the position. When I spoke with the last engineer that left, one of the things he told me is there's really not a job description that describes all his duties. You know, I think with all these positions in the county, I think we need to have specific job descriptions on what it entails. Yeah, who's in charge, so to speak?
Bruce?
So just check down through the list. IDOT has a job board.
Yeah.
Illinois Association of County Engineers has a job board. I'm aware of 4 counties south of Shelby that are looking for engineers. So you can also look at shared engineers with other counties, your neighbor or peer counties, and where you share the salary based on percentage of impact. And the last one is you can approach local civil engineers, which is probably a contract for bridges anyway, and contract for engineering services. And then essentially you fleet up your shop foreman to be the department head, but you contract out for the engineering people. So those are really the vehicles you've got. Monster and Indeed are all, I mean, you're fishing, but I went 6 months on Indeed trying to get somebody in. Indeed made money, but.
That was my concern. When I saw the price of it. Is it a value, can it bring a value to this county?
Well, so you can find plenty of candidates on those websites. The hard part is when you say, I'd like you to move to Southern Illinois, to a town of 4,700 that doesn't have a Starbucks. But those are the prime vehicles in Hamilton County right now is nearing crisis, and they're looking at the contracting option for a local firm that they've already, and I would imagine your engineer here contracted for bridge services.
We've done some contracting.
And they're.
Is there a residency requirement for county engineers to live in the county by the state?
That's established by county ordinance, so you can have a residence or not. I know there was a county, Mercer County had a engineer from Chicago that came in on train and stayed for 3 days. But they're hard to find.
Steve?
You can place an ad on governmenthrusa.com. They also have interim services available for county governments. And you can place an ad, or you can try to recruit from there.
Could you
have interims.
Can you send that to me on an email?
Yeah.
Or snail mail, whichever one is easier.
For the whole state of Illinois, there's all kinds of government. If anybody wants a job in government, just go right there.
Mark?
I just happened to stumble onto this because we were looking for a road commissioner for our township. And I happened to stumble on that the county engineer just has to live in the state of Illinois.
Correct. That's what I had seen, but then I knew that part of it. The only thing I could find of any of that in the big book that I have about county engineers that I was given of statutes was, if you and I are applying for the job and we're equal in everything, and you live in Shelby County and I live in Macon County, we have to give you beneficial preference for living in the county. That's the only residency requirement I can find. Is this going to make anybody upset if I stand for a little bit and talk?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess this is reading as we need a motion for me to proceed. I'm going to ask for a motion for me to proceed with this, going this route. If there's no motion, then we'll just let it go. If there's a motion, then we'll vote on it. We got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I mean, we kind of went out of order here, had the discussion. Is there any other discussion? Yes.
Is there any other neighboring counties to Shelby that's looking for one right now too, or not?
I believe Moultrie County is getting ready to lose theirs through retirement. Coles County, I heard, might be coming open also. So there's several counties.
Pulaski.
Pulaski. Okay. Did Greene County ever get anybody hired? Because last time I heard they were getting ready to get their MFT pulled from the state for over a year and a half of not having an engineer. So, and that's the other thing we're facing. We don't get somebody within a certain time period, the state will pull your MFT money for lack of compliance. Yes, dear.
And Greene County was sharing one with another county, and the state told them they had to hire somebody, so they were going to pull the funds.
That I did not know that. So we have
you have a year on the MFT.
That's what I thought. It was a year from the time of, so we have until June 10th of 23 to find someone, yes. So, I mean, we're not in dire straits yet, except it is just nice to have that person in that office and managing things. So we have a motion, properly seconded, to allow, at my discretion, I guess, is that how it reads? It just says utilize an employment website for the county engineer position. Yes, Bobby?
One point that I think would be prudent, that all applications, if they're already to be submitted, are returned to the county, not the website, or that.
That I cannot answer if that is done on those websites. I've never been on those websites except the other day just to look to see how this was worked out. And they wanted you to sign up to really get the particulars, and I was not about to do that until I spoke with the board. And I don't know if that's how that works or not. Anybody ever been on those websites? Do they allow you to send the stuff to me or to the county instead of to them, and then they send it to us? Or does it go to them and then they do allow that? Okay. Okay, I had no clue. No clue. All those in favor, say aye.
No, because we're potentially spending money.
Oh, yes it is. Sorry. Nice catch. You didn't have that written down here for me. Sorry.
Kenny Bard.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Yes.
Dennis Dernovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ongman.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
No.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yeah.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 19 ayes, 1 nay, Warman.
And I will go on record to say if we don't have anything in 2 months, I'm going to take it off and not renew it. Is that kosher?
Yeah.
So, okay. Oh boy, county highway reports. We got a couple of resolutions, and we got a resolution to appoint Stacy Prosser as acting county highway engineer. Stacy stepped up last time and did this. He's willing to step up again and help us out. I'll take a motion for that. Bob, second. Denny, any discussion? Bobby?
So as acting county engineer, what would the responsibilities be? That of an engineer?
He is basically going to sign any paperwork that needs to be signed and just make sure that we're doing what should be done for the state.
Okay, so does that require the same?
No.
The same qualifications as an engineer?
I would say it's just basically a lead person, isn't it?
Basically. If you look in the book, it has a statute that basically reads that anybody can be hired, done, and put in as an acting county engineer while there is not one there. They just have to just be appointed. So by the board. There's no qualifications for any type of training or anything. It's just whoever it is. Yes, Mark.
Just for informational, where did you find that at?
I got a book at my house. If you want to come look at it, you're more than willing to look at it.
I haven't seen it.
I'll be honest with you. It's about that thick. It's blue cover. I about threw it across the room a couple of times trying to find stuff. It almost went in the garbage right after we hired Steve, and I'm glad I didn't. So
You know what the name of the book is, right?
it's Illinois. It's through IDOT, Illinois. I can't tell you what is on the front of it. I've just got highlighted pages all over it and so forth and so on.
Get a hold of IDOT and they could maybe set you up with something online.
But if you want to borrow that, Mark, you can come borrow it and see if you can find anything for your situation.
Where you can.
Okay. There's probably still some in the highway department, to be honest with you. Stacy, would you happen to look for one of those? You know what I'm talking about, the book?
I got one with that.
You think you could, there's one laying around there somewhere that Mark could look into? Okay. Any other discussion, Mark?
Just change his salary.
No.
Well, that payroll stays the same on it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we got a 50-50 petition from Prairie Township Highway Commissioner to replace a culvert that's a half-mile east of 2900 East Road on 300 North Road. The expected expense is $7,900 and shared 50-50 since the 50-50 petition. Got a motion? Jeff. In a second? Don? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Roll call. Have I see that? I see that.
Kenny Barr.
Yeah.
Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox. Dennis Sturdivich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin. Julie Edwards. Gary Gergany. Matt Kessler. Sharon Ogman. Bobby Orman. Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer. David Switz. Don Tate. Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
There's just a few updates. The Coon Creek project that we've been discussing for several years has officially started. They're doing some dirt work on the ditches and stuff and replacing culverts and so forth and so on. I drove by there tonight on the way here and saw some of the work.
Do we have a tentative,
I'm sure there's a tentative a number there somewhere, but I am not. I'm not sure where that is.
I know it's early in the process.
I would say it's going to be a while.
I also drove over there.
I'm going to say it'll be a while. And the Westerville Bridge, it was supposed to start August 1st, has now been pushed back again to September 1. I don't know what. I'm assuming it's not able to obtain the beams again. I know it's going to be a hardship on those people coming in and out of that elevator this fall. All right.
Brian, question.
Yes.
Thoughts of maybe trying to push that?
I can't.
Is there thoughts about maybe trying to push that project till later?
The problem with that is, I believe that money it's got to be done this year, because that was a project that was started over 6 years ago to obtain the grant money. And the other issue that I believe that either Steve or Reed had told me was, if that bridge, we were to not say we weren't going to do it, the state's going to force us to post it really quick anyway. So it would be unusable for the trucks and stuff anyway. So it's a catch-22. The money's there now. Let's just go ahead and try to get it done. I know it's going to be a hardship, and I've had 4 or 5 phone calls from people in that area already asking the same question. And
Also, if we wait any longer, the price will go up, and everything skyrocket.
Yeah. One of those things. Erica, would you like to present on the public defender salary increase?
We received from the state the COLA increase for the state's attorney. The state has determined that her salary will be increased to $146,188.17. By statute, I believe it's 90%. The full-time public defender has to receive 90% of that pay, and that's $131,569.35. I believe I have to submit minutes where the board has approved this pay so that we can retroactively pay these increases for those 2 positions to July 1. So I would request that.
Is there a motion to, and Barb, Don seconds? Any discussion? Okay. Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany. Matt Kessler. Sharon Ogman. Bobby Orman.
Yeah.
Gary Patterson.
Yes?
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, 12, Cassie, discussion regarding comp time and premium pay procedures for Sheriff's Department.
Yes, so I was hoping to have conversations with our state's attorney, legal representation about this, but they're not here for pretty reasonable reasons. But this is one of those things that we've had emails about it. I have that in my stack here, but I'm not trying to get it out for time purposes. But essentially, there just seems to be confusion as to whether or not we, aka Erica, is going to be paying premium pay on the comp time. It hasn't been done. It was being paid on the front end, but now there's some confusion as to whether or not premium pay is going to be paid out when comp time is cashed in. I believe there is some pending grievance related to that, and the anticipation is that comp time will be cashed out here very soon, and so we kind of need to know what to do. We need to be in a consensus on how to move forward on that in regards to the comp time that we anticipate being cashed out here in just a few weeks, because if premium pay was paid on the front end, and then we're paying it again on the back end, that's very problematic.
Bobby?
Bruce, you're here. Can you put an insight on this as far as tracking and being compliant with the rules of the federal grant?
Sure. So this isn't a new topic. We've been talking about this for weeks, if not months. The use of ARPA funds for premium pay, whether it's in comp time, front hours, are all eligible. So how the two options you have of either pay it or don't pay it, either one of them are eligible under the Treasury guidelines. What my answer has been consistently for the last couple of months is the board just needs to decide. And then if grievances are filed, then you address grievances. A grievance is nothing more than a vehicle of a contract. So just decide which way you want to apply your ARPA money. I will tell you that it's a finite amount of money, and you'll run out of it. So you're just choosing how to apply it. The MOU has some really pretty vague language to it, and I think if it were pursued, I'm not sure which way it would go, but I've never seen an arbitrator direct federal grant monies into labor. That's not to say that an arbitrator won't, because they'll do odd things, but I've never seen it. But I didn't answer your question, but I gave you the information you need. It's your call. Just make it.
Are you aware of the statute that we were told was out there saying that you must pay the comp time at the rate of pay that is being paid at the time the comp time was cashed out?
It was quiet.
There was a statute that Nicole said was out there.
So the interesting question is whether or not the premium pay
Okay.
is included in that, because their base pay would be part of that statute and that calculation. The premium pay is on top of that, and was defined in an ordinance by the board. I didn't read that ordinance again before tonight, but
Yeah, I just didn't know if you were aware of that statute. And could
yeah. So
speak.
none of those statutes ever anticipated that the federal government would send you millions of dollars. So now we're just kind of reacting to it, and I tend to go towards what's your best use of your money to begin with, and then let the process go through. If a grievance prevails, that's why they have it. If a grievance leads to arbitration and they prevail, that's why they have it.
Any other questions, discussion on this? Gary?
Does all that comp time have to be the same, or can you separate the comp time earned during this period from the comp time that's already in your bank?
So from my perspective, it doesn't mean anything at all, because it's an eligible use of the funds for comp time. How you apply it is an internal decision.
But can we split that into like that? Can we say that the comp time earned between this date and August of '24 qualifies for one rate, and the comp time before that qualifies for a
Ideally, that
different
would have
rate?
been in your MOU.
Can I speak to that, Gary? That's
Yes.
why we're paying it on the front end. Right now, if an employee works overtime in that department, and let's say they've got 8 hours on this payroll that they want to comp, we're still paying the $9 an hour on that overtime, 8 hours. They're getting that in that paycheck no matter what, because as he said, those ARPA funds are gonna run out. And then we put the hours into comp. That's why the comp is the only thing we are not paying the premium pay on. We're paying it on the front end, which was a conversation that we had, I believe, with Jessica, myself, the sheriff, Jay, Scott, and Bruce, you know, back when we were trying to figure out how this pay was going to be. Because if they say, well, I earned that comp time between those dates, but it's 2 years later that they're cashing it out, and we have no ARPA funds, then we can't pay it. So that's why we've paid the overtime, no matter what. So yes, we have documented.
You're paying the premium amount right now, and then you're putting comp time.
Just the premium amount on the overtime, and then the overtime goes into the comp bank. So when they use comp time, we don't pay the premium. Like if someone decides to use 10 hours of their comp time, we don't pay the premium pay when they use it, because we've already paid it when they earned it, so that we could differentiate and keep track. So you know, they can comp up to 480 hours. How would you track what they earned during that time? You can't. That's why we chose to do it the way we did, so that there wouldn't be double and triple pay on that pay.
So the board just needs to vote how they're going to do it, and
Well, or we just do it the way we've been doing it. I know we got grief for the employees that left prior to even the paying on the MOU. We didn't end up paying till February. Who grieved because they cashed out comp time that they earned long before ARPA was even a thing, and they're demanding premium pay on those hours. They didn't earn them during ARPA. They got their $4,000 to go down the road and work somewhere else, but they want that premium pay. And that's, we're going to cash out comp time in August like they usually do, but we've already paid it on everything they've earned under the terms and dates of the MOU.
What needs to be done, basically, and it can't be done tonight because it's not, the motion is not worded, it's not worded that way. But it needs to be, we need to make a vote, take a vote, or have a motion made that we follow either what is Erica's already doing now, or give her direction to do it another way.
okay.
Set in stone, boom, done. That's what we need to get done.
Just like we did last month.
Pardon?
Just like we did last month on the base pay.
Yes.
Same thing, just have to clarify it. Okay.
Yep.
Correct, and I did not ask for a vote because what I was hoping was to get clarity from legal counsel as to what was already intended.
So, okay. Any other discussion on this aspect? I think this needs to make sure we get this on the agenda to be addressed next month. All right.
You got David.
We take like 5 minutes recess. At some point soon.
Yeah. We're going to take let's say 5 minutes, but hopefully everybody gets here quicker than that. But we'll take a recess. Do we need to vote?
I
It's changed a little bit.
Yeah. I was looking up and let's see if we stop the same ground. Maybe
You're the only name guys are alive. I'll take you guys down to the dungeon. Yes. Semper Fi, brother. Yes, thank you.
Right, and if they hire one.
I got friends in the leather net who've been trying to get me to join, but they're
haven't read it.
Well, they've got a good article about why and latitude. You're spending money on just about anything.
All right. We're going to move to number 13. We need Teresa, will you make a motion to untable your,
I make that motion.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we are legally untabling that, which was the ASME MOU, which is, just refresh my memory. You have that in there somewhere?
It's, yeah, I got it in there somewhere,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I should have asked that.
There you go.
So this is the one that will go back into effect on June 9th of 2022. Dollar increase for worker pay premium. It's retroactive December 21.
I think that I think Nicole's plan was that you would just motion to remove it from the table because the other resolutions are going to address that.
It's further in the agenda.
Okay. Yes, item 15 and 17 may be discussed and voted on. Okay, so we're not doing anything there. All right, so we go to item 14, discussion and vote on awarding all ASME members a $2,000 payment as hazard exposure bonus regardless of department. Cassie.
Yes, this is mine. I believe, this is made a lot of waves, and I would like to speak to why I put this on before I'm interrupted, if that's okay.
You have the floor. I will not allow anybody to interrupt you.
Thank you so much. So, I believe that we need to treat all of the departments involved in this MOU equally. I know that there has been some fuss raised about this because there was a committee that met and had discussions with the union. However, this was not the first amount that was requested by the union. The union initially requested amounts consistent with the FOP contract. That was not something that we awarded, which, as was discussed earlier, the buck stops with us when it comes to things like keeping the county out of hot water. We need to be considering things like fair labor and sexual discrimination. These are very big deals, and the union rep came in and spoke about that when she, at multiple times. I've reviewed the meetings from the meeting minutes from previous meetings, and they have spoken about not feeling like they're being treated equally. This bonus is supposed to reflect COVID exposure. I would like somebody to explain to me why the health department is being given a $2,000 COVID exposure bonus when the deputies were given $4,000. I would like somebody to explain to me why the women, because the department's being given only $1,500, are composed entirely of women with female-only leadership, are being given a $1,500 COVID exposure hazard pay bonus when they worked indoors in a building with not the best ventilation system and had to work public-facing throughout the entire life of the pandemic. While the highway department is being given $2,000. It doesn't matter that the union agreed to it. Because at the end of the day, as we just spent an absurdly long time discussing, the buck stops with us. We are the county leadership. We are the ones responsible for knowing that the ARPA funds are designed to address COVID hazard. Not general dangerous job duties, but COVID hazard. That's the spirit of the grant. The ARPA funds are not designed to just make people happy. It doesn't matter walked in and accepted whatever you were willing to offer them because they were afraid you weren't going to give them anything. It's our job to honor our employees and to protect the county from fair labor problems and from sexual discrimination.
Do you mean gender discrimination?
It's sexual discrimination because they're all female.
So basically what you're saying
No,
is...
no public body comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No public body comment.
I'm sorry.
Don?
Can't change the MOU without renegotiating with the union. That's in an opinion given by our state's attorney in an email that I got this afternoon. If you want to table the MOU, that's fine, again, but according to what she says, you can't change the terms of the MOU without renegotiation.
That's a labor fair practice. If we would do something different, it's getting back with the unions. I don't know if you all know me, but I worked with the unions for 15, 16 years up in Springfield. And when the union came up to negotiate these wages, I'm going to have every Ask Me person mad at me because of this, but it's true. That union, they're just not going to take what they want. It's negotiated. It's negotiated between the union and the county, okay? Both parties come to the table and talk, you know, what they would like to have, and they find a resolution to carry it on. And it's an unfair labor practice. We're looking at this if we even try to do this. Now, if you want to, what Don said, you can do that.
Well, I really resent this, us being, this not being fair to men or to women. It's never been an issue brought into our negotiations. We sat there with the unions, and for you to come in here and decide, well, we need to give all the same. Well, it's not all the same. I don't care if it's man or woman. We don't negotiate men or women. We negotiate the contract or whatever we're trying to do. And I don't want you coming in and saying, well, you just can't do it this way. We've already decided it. They agreed to it. So you agree to what you decide on, and then you vote on it. You don't come in and say, oh, let's give them a lot more money. Well, that's not being fiscally responsible either.
Ma'am, you're allowed to have your feelings, but the facts reflect that these are all female departments. These are all female staff departments with female-led leadership. And the departments that are being given more money are predominantly male with predominantly male leadership. Those are the facts. And if we were audited, the statute, well, whatever, the grant has language in it that says civil rights, the discrimination clauses regarding civil rights, which sex discrimination applies, are applicable to grant money. So if they come in and audit us, they can look at this and they can see that the money went here and more money went here. They can see that. What you intended to do, whether that was in your head or not, the facts don't lie.
It's not a fact. There was never anything biased of men or women. It's just the department and what they had to do and what we felt was right and what they decided was okay with them. So I don't think we need to be changing anything. Just vote on the MOU and be done with it.
Gary?
I was just going to say, I think it was done by the job, not by who the person was in the job. And if you go over to corrections, I don't know how many ladies and how many men are over there, but there, I think, are every bit as many more ladies as men. We have a lady deputy. They all got the same amount. It didn't matter what their gender was. They all got the same amount based on their job over there. And I think this same way, if we had a man in one of these offices, I don't think he would, I know he wouldn't have got any different settlement than anybody else, as long as he was in that job.
Bruce, you got some clarification possibly on this?
Sure. So it's important, first of all, to separate the premium pay that we've been talking about, the hourly rate, from these bulk payments or single payment hazard pay. The definition of hazard pay in the treasurer categories are groups of employees who have the same relative exposure, and then their hazard pay could be stratified based on that exposure. So across the state, they found consistently that in a county, the highest exposure for COVID was with corrections officers. And they became a stratified group, and then there was different categories coming all the way down. The amount that you assign to each category is the discretion of the county. But it's the bandwidth of that hazard pay, because it's a single pay associated to the hazard they were exposed to, is by class or by category. So I just don't want us to get confused with the premium pay, which is a different topic. It's, and I can't speak to the honorable members' concerns about whether they were male or female, but the county can consider the duties they performed in assigning different levels of hazard pay. Now, there is a category on the Treasury where it talks about applicability of federal and state laws that list a whole plethora of rules, including civil rights and discrimination. But it's not, in the Treasury reference, it's not delineated down to this level of detail. So if all of your corrections officers were female, or all of them were male, and all of your dispatchers were female or male, those two classes have different exposures and could be considered different for the hazard pay.
Cassie, do you think it's wise to second guess or revisit months and months of probably negotiations between business agents and county board members?
I think it's appropriate when we have this much discrepancy in how two similar MOUs were handled.
Don't you think it falls more on the business agents and not on the county board?
As we have been discussing all night, the buck stops with the county board.
Were any of those business agents female?
I don't know all of the names of everybody involved in that meeting.
I'm just curious if any of those business agents represented multiple of these groups, these different groups.
Would that matter when we're talking about the conversation we're talking about?
Well, it's going to your point of
The ASME rep is a female.
Okay.
And would that lessen the county's culpability?
I just think you're putting it on the county, and it's the business agent's job to get what they need to get to the negotiating table and to represent their group that they represent.
Whose
And then once
responsibility
that's
is it to
decided,
communicate?
is it wise for us to revisit, have to rethink and go back and try to correct something that they should have already dealt with, when there's not a really clear line?
I believe I already answered your question.
What you're saying is we need to revisit this because you believe that there's discrimination.
I do believe there's discrimination, yes.
Don?
We sat down with the ASME group, myself as chairman of this committee that negotiated this. They came in with things that they wanted to compensate their employee or their union members for after we passed the FOP MOU. We, as my committee, looked at the numbers that they asked for, decided we would offer this. They came back with other things, we came back with something else, and what you see before you in the MOU is what our committee and their committee agreed to, irregardless of male or female. It was discussed as this is what it is for the various departments under the ASME group.
It's under the Good Bargaining Act.
Denny?
Cassie, I've been in management for 20-something years. I was a union rep for United Auto Workers International for 16, 17 years. I appreciate what you're saying, but I resent the fact that you're trying to make it a sexist issue. As Don said, as Barb said, we were in there, and in negotiation, one side presents their demands, as they call them, and then we will go and approach each one and talk about it and try to find center ground. The union come back, first time we were going back and forth over a number of items.
Right.
And union said no. Okay, then we got back together and we negotiate more. The last time the union come back and says, yes, this is what we want. They agreed. That's not being a sexist. That's their agreement.
Sir, I'm very well aware of how negotiations work. I'm a grown woman. The facts do not change despite the level of resentment anybody has with me presenting them.
Not one time do I remember or recall saying it was all women here, it was all men there. No, it was employees.
Because there was men in the, men
Yes.
in the,
You don't have to say it for it to be true.
Mark, you started to raise your hand. Do you have something?
I believe what Don and the people that negotiated come to terms. You know, it's our job to get a good contract and save taxpayers' money. And this is COVID money. I guess in some respects, I don't know whether between the two groups, when they come back with their final, said they would take 1,500. I guess in some respects, I wish we would have said, would you settle for 2 because we're getting the others 2. That way all parties would feel the same. I don't see that the union would have turned that down, that we would have been generous. But to keep all parties happy, I think that would have been a good point to accomplish.
you guys can go negotiate and wait for next time.
Can we,
What? Yes.
I just asked them to move on from this issue to go to the next. I mean, if everybody's,
Technically, we've violated everything we should have done because we should have got a motion before we even started discussion. So now I'm kind of in a rock and a hard spot. I've got to ask for a motion before we can move on.
a motion to move on? Is that what you want?
No, I need a motion to either vote on this or it goes because of lack of a motion. We move on because of lack of a motion.
Don't we make, okay, I make a motion just to go ahead and vote on this MOU, because if we don't go over it tonight, they don't get any money yet.
We got to go 14 first. We got to do 14, and then we can go on to the next, if so we need to.
Would you have to change the MOU?
It would have to be amended somehow.
Okay,
Or
we
rewritten.
have to go back to negotiation?
That's right.
We've got to go back and renegotiate according to what our legal counsel told us.
I completely agree with that.
We're not gonna do it.
We're not going to get it tonight.
Is there a motion to do this? To award 2,000 payment?
Am I allowed to do that myself?
Yes, you are.
Well, I'm gonna do it then.
I was kind of waiting for you to.
I'm still learning here. Yes, I would like us
Cassie
to
made a
give
motion.
everybody
Is
equal
there a
pay,
second?
please.
Sharon, second. Any further discussion on this?
Just one thing, I really wish this would have been about exposure, and I'm kind of like, that I resent the fact that it became about male, female, ladies, gentlemen, whatever. I do believe that the women in the courthouse, indoor, were exposed more, and you can shake your head no all you want, but it is indoor exposure versus outdoor exposure. They earned as much as the other. You lost us when you made it about male-female, because it was not a male-female issue. And And they agreed to the negotiation, and I'm gonna stick with what the union rep agreed to.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, we gotta go roll call on this, don't we? No, we're not, yeah, we better just because it's spending money.
Yeah.
Roll call.
What's the motion?
The motion is to award $2,000, every person $2,000 pay instead of, everybody in the departments for the bonus on hazard bonus.
Okay, Kenny Barr,
No.
Robert Bennett,
No.
Mark Bennett,
No.
Teresa Bain,
No.
Brian Kaufman,
No.
Cassie Cox,
Yep.
Dennis Sturdivich,
No.
Jesse Durbin,
No.
Julie Edwards,
No.
Gary Gergety,
No.
Matt Kessler,
No.
Larry Lenz, oh, never mind, he's not here, Sharon Ongman,
No.
Bobby Orman,
Yeah, yes.
Gary Patterson,
No.
Derek Piercy,
No.
Robert Simpson,
No.
Jeff Slifer,
No.
David Switz,
No.
Don Tate,
No.
Lynn Williams.
No.
Motion fails, 18 nays with Cassie Cox and Bobby Orman voting yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to 15. Discussion and vote on resolution for ARPA funds to be utilized as compensation for ASME employees effective July 15, 2022, retroactive to June 9th, 2022. This requires a budget amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
should we do 16 first and come back to 15?
I'm trying to figure that out myself because I was thinking this looked like there was something that should have been in front of it, but
Or even 17, 16, 17, then 15?
She's got it in her notes here.
17's pulled if we approve 15. Board approves the MOU. Where's the MOU at?
It's item
So we need
15 here.
We need to go back
In
to
her notes.
15.
All right, but where are we? There's nothing on here about,
16 goes
We
with
just did
15.
14, now you're
Yes.
going to 15.
right. That's this resolution here, the MOU.
That's this resolution here.
Okay. But shouldn't we approve the MOU before we go to the
She
other?
essentially incorporated that MOU into
The
the
resolution.
resolution.
Okay. Okay, basically is what I'm reading from her notes here. If we are to approve number 15, or approves the MOU and decides to pay, and this is immediately effective, then we need to find this as an emergency. So we can do the budget amendment on it. Am I reading this right? Anybody else find this stuff from, I mean,
Is 15? 15?
yes.
Amend your budget before you create the liability.
So we need to amend the budget before we do that?
Yeah.
Do 16?
16, 15.
Okay, here's where we need to go. We need to either decide if this is an emergency, we move to 16. Because then we amend the budget. If it's not an emergency, and we're not gonna, then we go to 17 because that makes 15 null and void. Am I reading this right?
Yes.
I'm trying to, I knew there was a stickler in there somewhere I was missing. Thank you for the little bit of help there.
It says 15's got to be first.
So let's move to 16. Discussion and vote on 22 budget amendment for acceptance and disbursement as ARPA to ASME employees in an amount of $49,972.86.
Brian, can I speak to that number real quick, please?
Yes.
I sent an email to the full board.
Yes.
Nicole requested those numbers. Those are on actual hours that will be worked in these pay periods. It does not take into account any overtime, which the highway could potentially have overtime and maybe Jessica's office with election stuff. So, and Bruce will verify, ARPA's not hard and fast unless you're paying a lump sum, because you're paying on hourly wages. And again, with that being said, if there was any comp time, our offices don't tend to have a lot. Highway could use some.
Correct.
That can't be a hard and fast number, or we will not be able to cover overtime.
But you can have them come back and amend that budget at a later date.
It just needs to be, I would say.
I don't think we can change that number because we had an issue in an August meeting of last year where there was a number in the agenda of 5 minutes and it was amended to 3 because that's what the budget, that's what it said, and it was told, we were told we couldn't amend that back to change that number to 3.
I'm just telling you, there's not going to be enough.
Then we will address that then next month or the next month.
Cover through the payroll to the end of the year, so.
That's, we can amend that at a different time. I'm going by what we were told in the past, so.
I'm just letting you know.
Thank you. I saw that email come through, by the way. So, discussion and vote on 22 budget amendment for acceptance and disbursement of ARPA to ASME employees in an amount of $49,972.86. This means that this will get paid out of this year's budget. This is amending this year's budget. We had to find it as an emergency to do this. I think we had some public body comment on that tonight as to why this could be classified as an emergency. It's up to us to decide that. Is there a motion to amend the budget in the amount written?
I move to amend the budget in the amount written and it be an emergency.
Is there a second? Dante? Any discussion on this?
So is this,
Yes, sir.
this will be attached contract, right?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I got a question, I'm just going off the rumors. Is our contract binding? Because the last I know, there were some signatures missing off that contract.
Not all the department heads signed it, I don't think.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
I don't either, that's why I asked.
I don't know. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Kenny Barr,
Yes.
Barbara Bennett, Mark Bennett,
Yes.
Teresa Bang,
Yes.
Brian Kaufman,
Yes.
Cassie Cox,
Abstain?
Dennis Sturdivich,
Yes.
Jesse Durbin,
Yes.
Julie Edwards,
Yes.
Gary Gergany,
Yes.
Matt Kessler, Sharon Ogman,
Yes.
Bobby Warman,
Yes.
Gary Patterson,
Yes.
Derek Piercy,
Yes.
Robert Simpson,
Yes.
Jeff Slifer,
Yes.
David Switz,
Yep.
Don Tate,
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 19 yes with Cox abstaining.
All right, we're going to move back up to 15. Discussion and vote on the resolution for ARPA funds to be utilized as compensation for ASME employees effective July 15th, 2022, which is tomorrow, retroactive to June 9th, 2022. We've already got the required budget amendment, so we have it amended for the payment. Is there a motion? Bob, is there a second? Jeff? Any discussion?
I have a question. Have office budgets been amended, because I submitted an amendment and said if this was passed, that my office budget would have to be amended to cover this payment, and I never got a response, and I don't see it on the agenda that my office budget will be amended so that I can pay my ASME employee. It will be an emergency.
I have not seen it come through yet either, so.
Then I can't pay my asking employee until my office budget's amended. And that's what was asked of me, and I submitted that, and now it's not here.
I never saw it, Erica.
Nicole asked for it, and I sent it to her, and told her what my budget would have to be amended to cover this MOU.
Well, I cannot answer for Nicole if she can see that, saw that, or what she's done with it. I understand the quandary that you are in. I understand that. I'm just stating I can't answer what was communicated between you and Nicole. Don?
Did I see something that all of this stuff wasn't gonna be paid until after the end of this fiscal year, retroactive back out? Okay.
That was if we did not quantify this as an emergency, then we could not do the budget. Gary said it was an emergency, we all voted as an emergency, so we passed the budget. So now that comes out of it starts coming out of the budget that is expiring August 31st. And then that was, if not, then we had to go into the new budget period of September 1, do the budgets over, make a lot more work for Bruce back there. So we have sidestepped that with this budget amendment, emergency budget amendment. Steve?
This amount of money that was just amended, or was amended to in the Budget Act?
The general fund, I believe.
Correct? They could be paid out of the general fund.
What does the MOU say?
Also affects IMRF, and which that amendment, I believe, is later in the agenda.
Her budget amendment says to transfer 49,972.86 from the general fund above referenced ARPA monies to the payroll budgets of various county offices and departments to be utilized as salary and wages for current personnel who are AFSCME members, as memorialized in attached Exhibit A. And then she's got attached Exhibit A.
So basically, it's the same thing that we're doing with the ARPA fund for the sheriff's department. It comes into the general fund, then we're taking that out of the general fund and reimbursing him for what he paid his employees.
No. We're taking ARPA funds and we're reimbursing the general fund where payroll came out of. We're taking ARPA funds out of the ARPA fund and putting it in Social Security that was created because of the MOU. We're taking it from ARPA into the IMRF fund for the amount of IMRF that was paid out of payroll because of the MOU. Nobody's budget gets reimbursed anything, and our auditors have said you cannot reimburse an expense. Our budget stays the same, and payroll comes out of the general fund. ARPA is just reimbursing the general fund, not the budget.
Okay. I remember that conversation from the last time.
As you want to get it.
Yes. Have we voted on that yet? Don?
So how does that, if your salaries are paid out of general fund, is that right? So how does that affect then that you have to have your budget for your office of change?
My office budget, all of my office budget, well, most all of it comes out of the general fund. You know, that's why you see 001 and then office 004 is the treasurer. And, you know, then I have my line items. So when I pay payroll, that's why I have to budget that line item a certain amount for payroll. And every office has to do that. It comes out of the general fund. And then the part we pay for Social Security comes out of the Social Security fund, the IMRF fund, and
We're just fortunate enough tonight that we have a guru on this sitting in our audience, so. Can you help us?
Your motion is about intent and your debating process. So if you acted on your motion on what your intent and let process work itself out, there are smart people who will figure out process. But your motion is about your intent and your 15 minutes of sausage making.
Yes. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yeah.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Abstain.
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ogman.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes?
Greg Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer. David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 19 ayes, Cox abstains.
We're no longer need 17, moving to 18, discussion and vote on resolution for ARPA funds to be utilized as compensation for non-union employees effective September 1, 2022 and retroactive to June 9, 2022. No amendment required. So this will come out of the 22-23 budget, the new budget, so we won't need to worry about budgeting for this year or making any budget amendment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? David? Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yeah.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Abstain.
Cassie?
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ogman.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes?
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 19 ayes, Cox abstains.
Sheriff McReynolds, amending your budget for the 2022 year.
This is a request for some amendments to our operating budget to be able to finish out this current fiscal year. The majority of this was, the first couple lines was due to increased inmates that we had. We were short, we're gonna be short $42,000, but $20 for food for inmates, and then $17,000 medical for inmates, $18,000 utilities, $58,000 on vehicle operation, and much of that was fuel cost. Then uniforms and training for this year, and then we still have some courthouse bills coming in for some maintenance, including the AC units, which being in here tonight, I'm not sure they're working correctly either. It's a little warm.
On this, of the inmate stuff, some of that gets reimbursed from the state to
We
you?
did get a check for $55,000 for holding DOC inmates that had already been sentenced to prison.
Okay.
We were holding them longer than we
I knew
should.
there was something like
So
that.
we were reimbursed $55,000 and went to the general fund.
Okay. Okay, I knew there was something hanging out there still from the last meeting, I was just curious if that had come in. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Jeff, is there a second?
Yes.
Matt? Any discussion? Roll call?
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Yes.
Dennis Sturdivant.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ogman.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Can I
sir.
ask one question, sir? Are we still utilizing the output out of Peoria for medical, in that medical?
ACH, yes.
Is that a membership fee on that?
Yeah, we have a contract with them, yes. But many of them end up going to the emergency room also.
There's some things
Right,
that the
that-
house doctor can't
right.
do, we have to take them to emergency room.
That was those things that would be on.
Yes. Ambulance rides and our visits.
So, that.
Sheriff, discussion and vote on food service contract proposal.
Our current food service contract is up come September 1st. We put it out for bids. I actually hand delivered the requirements of the contract to the nursing homes in town, to Lakeview and several places. And we ended up with, first we had 0 bids, and then we contacted Consolidated Correctional Food Services, which is the one bid we now have, which is a company that does jail. I think they're in 11 counties here in Illinois and in other states too, 11 here in Illinois, including Christian County, which is where we learned from them. And that was the only bid we received was from this correctional food service. It's more expensive, which we knew it was going to be regardless of who gave us the bid this year. But right now I have it budgeted at $135,000 for next year if we're utilizing them.
Good old inflation. Is there a motion? Teresa, Gary, Patterson, seconded. Discussion?
What was the previous cost?
Well, the previous budgeted was 42, but we were over 42 short, so that would have been 84 on this last year on the old contract.
But that's only paying for the hospital, the contract itself. That's not including, we buy
Milk and
milk
cereal.
and cereal and
Spoons.
spoons and that kind of stuff. So that's not even including that.
Which that will be included in this contract. They'll take care of it all.
Any other discussion?
They've also had a lot more inmates than they've been over there too.
Yes.
And that makes it,
Yes. We've been under 25 for a long time.
Any other discussion?
It's consistent with how much my food cost has gone up.
Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Yes.
Dennis Hurtovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ongman.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Erica, discussion and vote on fiscal year 2022 budget amendment to pay Social Security obligations, $20,000, roughly.
Just based on the MOU that I didn't have to beginning of the year and the increase in.
Is there a motion? Barb? Gary Gergany, seconded. Any discussion? Don?
Is that strictly, or is that just both MOUs or the sheriff's MOU or which one is, or
Well, it's,
both of them?
yeah, because we just passed another one, so it's what the MOUs, increasing what the MOUs create,
Okay.
basically.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox.
Yes.
Dennis Hurtovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ongman.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson. Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
22 budget amendment to pay Social Security obligations amount of $20,000. Basically the same.
We're on that.
Oh.
We're on IRS.
paragraph, yes, I see it.
Same issue.
I'm one behind for some reason. Usually I'm ahead. Sorry.
Same issue.
Same issue. Got a motion? Gary Gergany, Bobby seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yes.
Brian Hoffman.
Yes.
Cassie Cox. Dennis Cernovich.
Yeah.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ogman.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I am asking for approval of the 2022-2024 election judges. These lists were submitted by the Central Committee Chairman as well as the Central Committee Precinct Committee persons. I have to publish a notice in the paper. I have already filed my paperwork for a court case. I'm just waiting to get my court date. These people will be commissioned by the court as they are officers of the court. So I'm asking that you please approve my election judge list for 22 through 24.
Is there a motion? Barb? Don Tate, seconded. Any discussion? David?
Have these already worked? Did they work this past election?
Some of them worked, and there's several new names on the list as well.
And why was the reason we couldn't see it?
The lists are on file. That's just something that we've never sent out. I mean, it's got their address, it's got their phone numbers and everything. So if you want to see it, you can come down to the office and view them.
Okay. Well, I hate voting on something that if they've already worked. and we
Well,
didn't know if
not
they
all
showed-
of them have worked. Some of them have, some of them haven't. We're required by law to commission the judges every 2 years. And like I said, I have to put an ad in the paper to let the public know when the hearing will be done on this. And the public is welcome to come in and view the list as well. And then these will be officers of the court. They will be officers of the court when they're commissioned by the judge. So,
So how do we know if they've actually worked or not?
doesn't matter if they've worked or not, we're gonna have to do required training. We have to do required training every 2 years.
So the
now.
people that worked, that are new, didn't do the training?
The judges that worked in the primary were commissioned for 20 through 22. These judges will be new, and they will work the November election through the primary in 2024. So the judges that just worked had been previously commissioned.
Okay, so you just renew it after the primary?
Yeah, and then we, like I said, we get some new names as well.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, that was it.
No, it's me again.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry. Okay, in my haste with amongst redistricting and everything else we were working on at the end of December, I failed to put the December 5th organizational meeting in the list of scheduled meetings for 2022. Since we are going to have a totally new board seated December 1st, essentially, we wouldn't be able to call a special meeting, so I did need to include the organizational meeting, which will be held on Monday, December 5th, in the list of 2022 meetings that had previously been approved on December 9th. So I'm essentially asking for a motion, a second, and approval of the amended 2022 meeting list.
Gary Gergen made the motion. Is that what you're raising your hand for, Gary? Okay. Mark Bennett, second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, committee reports. Is there any committee reports? Don Tate.
Previous to tonight's meeting, I held a Public Buildings Committee meeting, and we decided that we're going to request that the Budget Committee appropriate $1.25 million of ARPA funds into the capital improvements for the courthouse to take care of restoration of the windows, mitigating circumstances that seem to be causing a little bit of mold in the first floor, and other items as funds are available.
Good.
Just as budget chairman, you know what we're requesting you do.
All righty. Any other committee reports, Sharon?
I guess I have a question more than anything. I'm on the airport committee. When you go to those meetings, you're just there to observe, is what we were told?
That I can't answer. Never been to one.
I mean, what's the point of being on a committee if you just go there and they tell you you can't second anything, or you're just there to observe what they do? I mean, I don't know what the rules are, but
I would have to look at the rules of that committee.
It's the way that commission was set up.
That airport commission was set up that.
Actually, commission, when it was set up.
then what's the?
When I was on it, we weren't allowed to go in.
Report back.
Okay, report back that I can't do anything. There's my report.
Report back. And when I say that, report back in respect to, we do have a part in our budget.
Right, and yes,
So-
and they did review that with us. Okay, but Cassie and I we were both sort of told that like, we're just here
I'm excited.
to listen?
They were like, here are the bills, you guys, who
Yeah.
wants to second the bills? And I think Sharon was like, me, and they were like,
That,
no.
no, you can't do that. You can't. Okay,
I honestly will say I did not know that.
Yeah.
okay, I just sort of shocked me.
So I was like, do we interact at all, or no?
Okay.
And they were like, no, and I was like, well, I don't know a lot about airplanes anyway, so.
Okay,
probably
but
don't.
then another committee I'm on, supposedly, ambulance, which I've never been to a meeting or heard of one, and now we're not gonna have an ambulance service.
Well,
And my question is, who, does the city or the county approve the ambulance service? Because at the city meeting this week, another ambulance company presented something to them. So who decides on the ambulance service for the county?
That is kind of a unknown answer to a question that is very valid. We levy for the ambulances. But
Yes.
Bruce, would you like to?
levy for ambulance?
Pardon?
You
Yes.
collect a levy for
Yes.
but you don't have a county ambulance service.
No.
We won't have anything.
So it's, in that instance, there generally is an intergovernmental agreement that you're levying and transferring the money somewhere. So if you follow that intergovernmental agreement, that's the person you want to talk to.
So when the ambulance people come in, do they present to the county?
Probably not.
Stipend?
Because if you're levying and transferring, then somebody else is managing. Whoever you're transferring that money to, they have management responsibility.
But the county pays to all the ambulance services, I think it's $25.
No, we don't pay to all the ambulance
Well,
services.
the county.
We only pay to the ambulance services that don't levy under a fire protection
Oh,
district.
okay, yeah.
So there's
yeah.
currently 3 that we pay the stipend to. What the county did was they had a referenda where we would pay a stipend, a $25 stipend per call.
To the districts,
No. This happened back in the late 70s, early 80s. There was a local ambulance service. In order to offset their costs, the county did a referendum to levy for ambulance, pay a stipend per call. We don't pay those ambulances that, of course, pay into a fire protection district because they already have one to use. We've already had a referendum filed to put on the November ballot for for a fire protection district that wants to start levying for ambulance again. So it's just kind of a mess.
get somebody else to manage it and give them money. You don't want to manage it.
Always against
As of June.
In order to quit paying that stipend, because that was back when they really needed the money, and now all these ambulance, you know, they're building all the insurance and they're getting it from the people, so why is the county still have that $25 stipend?
Because they had a referendum to do, and the board, I mean, because it was board action, the board took action. You know, you know, I guess that you could have a referendum to quit lending for ambulance if you wanted. I don't know, but, I mean, until the board says, we did, my personal opinion is I wondered how we were paying a stipend to a not-for-profit ambulance service, but that's just a thought that I've had for some time. But the board would have to take action to reverse action that they took to implement that stipend.
Do you have to have another referendum?
I can't answer that. That's a legal question.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Lynn?
If we're paying somebody where it's kind of a double payment, I think what you said is we need to look and take that levy off.
It's not, I mean, the stipend wasn't implemented to offset cost for ambulance calls. It's true, ambulance services do bill for services and medical care, etc. But they also have to buy tires and gas and everything else. And that's why that stipend, a $25 stipend per call, was implemented, because it was a locally owned husband and wife ambulance service at the time.
But it's not that way.
It's not that way anymore, and like I said, that's not my call, so.
Okay, so, Brian, I'm not saying next month, but we need to look into this.
Well, here under chairman updates, it says ambulance, because I was going to assign this problem to the miscellaneous and ambulance committee, which is David and Sharon and Mark and Denny and if I can find the I think it might be it. David, Mark, and Dante. So I would like for you guys to look into this and maybe get together with maybe Shelbyville, City of Shelbyville, and come up with some ideas to bring to the next board meeting. Because as of September 1, there is no ambulance service in the county, besides the local fire protection districts that have their own. And I believe, I don't know if Echo is.
I've heard they are interested, but I don't know.
Well, they have one or two ambulance based out of Moika Fire right now.
As of June the 28th, I got an email from Troy. So the announcement by HSHS to close down their ambulance service, DAS, has caused quite a panic. At this point, and officially, there are at least 3 providers looking at taking over for our area.
Yes.
More information will be passed along as I get it. And then I believe he also attended a meeting with the city council here in town to talk about the same issue.
Yes. So we have that committee already formed. Thankfully, it's not been used very often, especially with the ambulance, but I think it's a valuable asset to this board as of now in this county. So, David, unfortunately, it looks like you're the head of that committee too. So, any other committee reports?
I got one.
Gary.
Just very quick, the law enforcement committee wants to report that the auxiliary unit was disbanded by the sheriff on June the 23rd because of all the requirements for training. They really didn't have they haven't worked since the laws went into effect last year, and they really wasn't any way to make that work, so he disbanded them. On June the 23rd, they turned in their equipment on June the 22nd.
Okay. Any other updates, committee updates?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I got a quick update to body cameras too, but from Matt Moore, which is the sales representative, he said if the money is appropriate for the payment for the upcoming FY, we can reset the terms of the agreement. That would require us creating an agreement and cancel the active agreement with your agency and sending back all the equipment. And then we would need to create a new quote, new start date and end date, and then they would execute without the approval, and we would end up getting new equipment. So as long as we appropriate the money in the next fiscal year, we can reset the terms of.
Does that come out of you budget for that?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
okay. I just want to make sure it's included in the budget for now. Thank you. Any other committee reports? The chairman update was the situation with the ambulance in the county. We went over that. I think we've got some people who are going to be looking into that and working with Shelby Bill and whoever else needs to be worked with. There is no chairman appointments today. There's no no correspondence. 29 is approval of payment of claims. Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll make it.
Mark, second. Don? Any discussion? Roll call?
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Teresa Bain.
Yeah.
Brian Coffin.
Yes.
Cassie Cox. Vince Cernovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Julie Edwards.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Matt Kessler.
Yes.
Sharon Ogman.
Yes.
Bobby Orman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Eric Piercy. Bob Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yep.
John Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Is there a motion to adjourn? David? Bob? All those in favor? Opposed? Everybody have a safe trip home?
Don't hit the deer. Take care, Mr. Meyer.
Good day.
Don't go to bed now, right?
Ain't bad as it was.
It should be you.
Oh, yeah.
How you been?